All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday night, so you know what that means. It's all the latest happenings here in the world of sports and some here on Sportswire Radio. And to kick things off, as always, he's going to talk a little bit of NHL. He's going to talk some wrestling, and I'm going to try to figure out what kind of wrestling sweater he's got on. And he's also the host of the Hockey Fan Chat Show, which I think I've listened to so many times at this point because it's been my opener before I go live around the rest of the world. That is Mr. Randy Dillon. Randy, happy Friday, my friend.
Happy Friday, Tom. As the fellas said, as they say on SmackDown, it's Friday. It's fight night. So
it's been a big fight night on SmackDown. I'll tell you that much. I have been really, really into SmackDown tonight. And before I get into SmackDown, talk some AEW, maybe talk some other wrestling companies, and certainly we'll talk the NHL as the local teams have made some big news. What's the sweater? What is the wrestling sweater?
This is actually a sweater by The Rock, his own design.
Oh, really? I didn't see that one before. When did that one come out?
I don't know. My brother got me a birthday gift, so I thought I'd wear it. But we all know he's not showing up to the... I still think The Rock will show up in WrestleMania in some capacity because it is in Los Angeles. But he definitely won't be in a ring or anything.
Well, I think that was pretty much Triple H had said that, listen, The Rock's not in ring shape. So that's not happening. I mean, I would say the chances of The Rock returning for a match are pretty much slim to none. Could he make a cameo of some sorts? I mean, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. Los Angeles, certainly that wouldn't surprise me. But I think The Rock, we're moving away from The Rock. Exactly. I think it's about Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn here. And certainly Sami Zayn and Jey Uso have been a big thing here in SmackDown. Kind of, we just saw them about 10 or 15 minutes ago. They kind of had some sort of interaction, and we still don't know where, I guess, Jey Uso stands here with the Bloodline, but the Bloodline here, the Usos retain the tag team titles still over Braun Strowman and Ricochet. I don't think anybody really thought that Strowman and Ricochet were going to take the belts, but I mean, we're 8 days away from Montreal, or 8 days away from the Chamber, and we've got questions still here.
Yeah, there is questions on what's going to happen because from what I've read, everyone knows Jey Uso's legal history. He's a couple of DUIs, and it's hard to get him over the border to Canada due to law. So I think they're trying to sort out, is it possible for him just to come and go? So definitely I think that puts a question on what the outcome of Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns' match going to be. Are we going to see Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn team up at the end of the night to confirm him still face the Usos at WrestleMania or something else? Because I thought about this long and hard, and you saw my tweet from last week when the match was announced.
Yep.
I don't see Sami Zayn beating Roman Reigns. I understand he had the momentum of the crowd, but I also got to think, does he have the momentum of the wins? Who has he beat big lately? Like I remember with Rey Mysterio 06, he won the Rumble. Daniel Bryan beat John Cena, got screwed.
There's one example, and you made me think. You had to make me go way back in the time machine. There's one example where we kind of saw this scenario was Eddie Guerrero and Brock Lesnar.
That is the one. But I even think Eddie had himself established. Eddie was always...
he didn't have the wins similar to Sami. I mean, Sami's got a couple of pinfall victories in multiple matches, but nothing to the degree of the tune of a win over a former world champion or a win over somebody that's main event. I mean, to that point, there's no momentum here, really.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's where I question where if Sami could beat someone, even the likes of Jey Uso, Solo Sikoa, just to get him that momentum going to WrestleMania, there would be more of a chance for me to believe, or even the Elimination Chamber, he could actually pull it off. But at this point, we know how the Bloodline's been working, how it's been like a group. But even if Roman Reigns has shown he can put on beat them all with or without the Bloodline. So that's where I'm like, I don't see Sami Zayn have that momentum.
All right, but ask yourself this, though. Ask yourself this for the wrestling fans that are tuned in here, and you're thinking about this scenario where Sami Zayn is kind of come out of nowhere here, and he's certainly won the fans over the past, let's say, 3 months, three and a half months. I mean, let's say he wins the title, though. I mean, where would you even go with Roman Reigns, though? That's my question. My problem here, though, is with Sami, I mean, it would be an epic moment, no question. Montreal, he's from there. That crowd's going to be off the chart. I mean, it's going to be, and Montreal's always a hot crowd. I mean, you think about when Hogan came back against Kurt Angle. You think about when Owens and Jericho went to
97. I
Montreal.
watched the entrance in '97 between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, and I remember how much the crowd hated Shawn Michaels. And no offense to Shawn Michaels, what he did, I'm surprised he didn't get shot that night. What he did
Wow.
with the Canadian flag, but the reaction for Bret Hart, like I think we're going to see a same thing, a really high heated Sammy crowd and a lot of hate towards Roman, the most hate he's probably heard in a while.
Well, I mean, yes, because Sammy's certainly the hometown guy. But ask yourself this though: after that, let's just say Sammy gets the title, though. I mean, where would you go from here with Roman, and where would you go with WrestleMania? That's why, to me, it doesn't quite really make sense for Sammy to capture the title next Saturday.
You're absolutely right. Like, and the whole logistic, especially with the promo Paul Heyman and Cody Rhodes did on Monday, which I guess we'll get into a little.
Well, we're going to get to that. Yes, I saw the promo. Yes, we are going to talk
You're
about
absolutely right. Like, where do you go with Roman? You built him up to be this main attraction. You pretty much put him on an elite level. Like, only a few wrestlers have been put on. Hogan, Cena, Rock, San Martino's, Austin.
Well, in terms of all-time days, we're talking about Hogan, we're talking about San Martino, and we're talking Backlund. And Backlund had one reign for almost 5.5 years, and the other one for like a couple days. So that's it. That's the only other wrestlers that Roman has held that championship, that those wrestlers have held it longer than Roman. That's it. It's not Bret Hart. It's not Rock. It's not Cena. All those wrestlers. It's rarefied air right now.
So that's where, like, especially to how I think later this year, Sami Zayn will win a world title. I just don't think during the time now, it's just not possible because you give it to Sami Zayn at Elimination Chamber. What do you do for Mania? How is he, like, are you going to turn Cody heel then? Because you need a heel, because then Roman's pretty much off the ring. Do you make it just a triple threat match? But then it's just like how just so Cody then.
See, my thing though is that the way, and you mentioned Heyman. We'll talk about Heyman for a second because Heyman was a big part of things tonight, obviously with the Usos and Sammy to open the show. But the way that conversation went in front of everybody Monday night with Cody and Heyman, I don't think Cody's turning either to be a bad guy.
No, I don't think Cody's turning. You gotta be right there. How they brought Cody in, they brought him back as the returning son of the American Dream, looking to fulfill that legacy of the Rhodes family, where Dusty Goldust himself couldn't do. Him to win his first big world title. I don't recall. He didn't win in AEW. I can't recall if he did win the Impact title when he was there. But this would certainly.
I don't think an Impact. You know what? I'm thinking about his run in Impact wasn't that long. Like the Ring of Honor Impact era, that was maybe a year at most.
Yeah. So this is literally be his first major title he wins. So and he has the momentum, the sympathy of the fan, the return, everything that happened. He's clearly the fan favorite here. And I know people have mentioned, oh, the fans are going to turn on Cody. I don't think so. This isn't your Batista or Cena or some random guy Vince put their down our throat like Austin Aries. This is someone I think the fans will follow that want this to happen. Cody Rhodes to become world champion.
Well, I don't know if I would have said it up until Monday night. The way they talked about the back and forth, where you heard about Dusty Rhodes and stuff that we didn't really know, where Dusty Rhodes and the Rhodes family was broke, and we talked about the lack of confidence, and we talked about different things that I think a lot of people really were kind of taken back from. I mean, maybe if you read the Dusty Rhodes book, that would be one thing. But I mean, I think that the fans now would be behind Cody Rhodes. But I mean, I just don't see Sami Zayn here capturing the Universal Championship here from Roman Reigns in these titles, because I just don't think at the end of the day, where are you going to go afterwards? It doesn't make any sense.
You're absolutely right. Like, what is the long-term direction of you're going to put Sami Zayn in? Because I even remember Sami Zayn was in an interview with someone. He said, you could put the belt on me for 6 months, but I can't really be the face because I'm on that persona. But even if you put the belt on him now, you mentioned, where does he go? Okay, you put him now in a clash with Cody.
No, you know what? I don't know if that was Broken Skull Sessions, because I know in Broken Skull Sessions they talked about him with the title, and Austin had asked him that question, and he basically was like, look, I'll take the title. I'm pretty sure he said, I'll take the title just for like one day or a very short time. But yeah, he doesn't scream long-term champion. Listen, he's one of those guys that falls into the chaser category. He's a great chaser, but in terms of holding a title, I don't think he's that guy. Cody, I think, looks more like a champion. Now, like you said, Cody didn't win the AEW title, but let's be honest, there was nepotism there if he would have got the title because he was obviously involved in that company. Ring of Honor and Impact wasn't really there long enough. Can't really make the judgment on there. WWE, I mean, listen, they put makeup all over him, and they kind of, at times kind of sidecasted him a little bit. So it's kind of, you can't paint him with a broad brush in that sense. But Cody looked the part. And I think what was good about Cody on Monday, he kind of took off the suit and tie a little bit. You saw Cody in a little bit more of a different light, which I think that people do want to cheer for Cody in that sense. And then obviously, I wanted to talk to you also about on the women's title end sides here. I mean, what do you think here still happens with Bianca? It looks to me as if Bailey's going to be out of the picture for a bit, so that would still leave some other roles there. And where do you think Becky Lynch falls into all this? Obviously, Becky gets the big win. Lita comes back. So give me your thoughts on the Raw women's title picture aside.
I am really at a loss with Becky Lynch, but
That's why I asked you.
I'll get back to that. Women's title picture, I said it last week, is Asuka. The way they're building her up again, her character change, I really do expect Asuka to be the one to dethrone Balor and have a long run.
Okay, so you think that Asuka will get the shot against Bianca to maybe rectify her kind of run coming back from an injury, and you think that she would have a shot against Bianca? Is that what you think?
I think so because we got to look at Asuka's history, both NXT, and I know back in the day this would have been a dream match, but she definitely has had some. Her record speaks for herself. I know the last few years, especially the time under Vince, it didn't really sell. She got the title here and there, more of just kind of, oh, here you go. We just need someone to put the title on. But I definitely think with Triple H running the show, they're the reason why Asuka was the face of NXT from the summer of 2016 to the fall of 2017. That's
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's fair. Listen, there's no question that Asuka, her track record speaks for itself, whether it was in NXT or whether it was in the WWE and the different various runs. And I want to give a shout out to somebody who's actually wrestling tomorrow night in the UK, who I don't know why he's up still. It's 2:42 in the morning. That is, of course, I believe this individual is tied to Mr. Young Horus, who's going to be in a match that a lot of people have been hyping up here on Sportswire Radio against the Cult of Killjoy, Dan Robertson, with Joshua Snow, the chairman of Nonstop Action Wrestling, as the special referee. That'd be almost like Vince McMahon being the special referee in a WWE match, Randy, for the casual wrestling fans that are here. And I have to ask, Mr. Los here, I mean, have you heard what some have said about Mr. Robertson? In fact, we actually said that he had drank bleach because he's going through he's got this interesting storyline, but it's a side point. We'll certainly come back to that. And then obviously Charlotte just spoke on the screen here when it came to SmackDown, and we didn't see Rhea this past week, but obviously anything else you want to add to that? I would imagine, though, before we get to Charlotte, maybe we will see Rhea and Beth Phoenix in a confrontation because we saw Beth Phoenix on Raw.
Yeah, I definitely think in Montreal or the next Monday on Raw. I think it's in Toronto or Ottawa. Can't recall. We'll definitely see either we'll see a mixed tag team match with Edge and Beth versus Rhea and Finn. And I definitely gotta believe Rhea's gonna get over there because you gotta build her up the way it's going.
And what do you make of Lita? Obviously, Lita comes out, which was odd because last year at this time, it was Lita and Becky Lynch that were going to wrestle in the Elimination Chamber, and yet Lita saves Becky Lynch. Obviously, if you were following that storyline last year, there was a history between them where Lita was Becky Lynch's idol, and obviously there was a long-standing relationship there, obviously going back to the NXT days, and when Lita was a part of that, they're doing some commentary and other things. But I mean, is Lita back for good? Is Lita here till Mania? Is Lita going to wrestle the Chamber? I mean, if you saw NXT and you saw the bump this week, Becky had an arm cast on. So I don't know if she's really injured or not, but what happens with Lita here?
What I was reading was a very interesting thing. We might see Trish Stratus and Lita versus Damage Control at the Chamber.
Really?
I find that to be a little interesting because I feel the Chamber is set with matches. I feel any matches you're going to add on, they're going to be rushed for time. So it has to be more for the next Raw or the Friday before. I'm not too sure, but And then Bailey and Becky Lynch in the arm cast. This is interesting because what is she kind of playing an angle where the kind of thing she's out of Mania? Because again, we've talked
Well,
about.
that's the thing with Bailey because she was on NXT in the Toxic Attraction segment and she was wearing a sling. And then on the bump, which was the next day, she had the sling on again. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I watched the match. I watched it live. Nothing said in my head, hey, Bailey's hurt. I mean,
Yeah.
I was just curious because my first inclination was, okay, we're going to see Lita and maybe Bailey in a match for, at the very least, Mania, maybe even Chamber because we've got one more Raw. But if she's wearing a sling, how
Yeah,
does that fall into play?
I have to think because didn't hear anything she was hurt. I have to think this is more of a story to kind of because I don't think they have any strong plans for her at Mania, other than to be with kind of damage control in the background. So I think this is kind of unfortunately
Maybe
we don't.
Bailey's hurt more than maybe people realize because she was out for a long time. Maybe I don't know. That's the only thing I could think
That's
of.
true, and she hasn't wrestled much either lately.
No, that's my point. Yep.
Yeah, so I made possibilities she actually could be hurt again.
Well,
And
I
don't
certainly
forget,
hope
the
not.
arm injury has been an issue with her in years past as well. So I go back, I think 2016, I think she was wearing a sling in NXT when she was supposed to fight Asuka at a takeover, and she couldn't. They had to push her back, and I think a couple of times during Raw as well when she got called up, they had to push her back. So definitely, this might be a recurring injury.
And before I move on to AEW, and we'll certainly talk the NHL a little bit before at the 10 o'clock hour or so, about 10 or 15 minutes, I want to talk a little bit about WWE and AEW. But anything else in the WWE that comes to mind that you want to talk about here? I mean, obviously, Seth Rollins, I guess, is going to be a part of the chamber. He addressed CM Punk, I saw in an interview this week. I also saw Logan Paul come up. And anything else WWE before I ask you a few thoughts on AEW?
That's all the one I want to talk about. His comments.
Yes, you
I
heard
don't
that.
know if this is him playing the character or this is actually how he feels because he's really thrown some dirt on CM Punk and Logan Paul, saying they don't
Well, he
belong
walked a
here.
little bit back on what he said about Punk. I mean, he sort of compared them to each other, but he did walk a little bit back on Punk, but he definitely threw shade at him. That I agree with you on.
I think definitely Punk came up with the idea of this
Mhm.
really kind of helping out the Shield in their earlier days. So
I remember.
I think Rollins does owe it to him that then. But I think how you look at the last when how Punk left, how he would voice and how he's gone to AEW. I think how Rollins sees it, he thinks now you're bigger and better than us, and just because you can talk smack, you don't have to. We know you pay your dues, but just you think you can talk smack and do whatever you want. And I think for someone like Rollins, who's really worked hard and seen guys do that, and where a point he's at in his career, I think it would be a little disrespect in that sense. With Logan Paul, it's very interesting because he's come a couple of times saying Logan he doesn't like him. So do you really want to put Rollins in the match with a guy that actually have legitimate heat with the guy?
No, this is WWE, Randy. That's exactly why they're putting him in the match. You, as well as anybody else, knows that. Come on, Randy, you know it. And I've interviewed enough wrestlers that I know that that's exactly why they're putting that match together.
But this is a different time though because I understand why they're doing it, but I'm like with Vince, the one thing we gotta give Vince credit for, he knew how to protect the celebrities and how to make sure they didn't get hurt. I don't know how it's gonna work. Triple H has seemed to be a good job, but we'll see how Rollins. And don't forget, Rollins does have a history with some injuries, some superstars. So
yes, he definitely does. And obviously, I think back to Sting. I think back to I think Bobby Lashley. Even I think at one point. I mean, so I mean, there's a number of wrestlers. Obviously, we saw the whole thing with Matt Riddle, and Matt Riddle is kind of like a Riddle now, almost because he's had his own issues outside the ring. But yeah, listen, I mean, Punk obviously everybody piles on. When it comes to Logan Paul, I mean, obviously that would tell me that the U.S. title, Austin Theory, is not going to lose it to Seth Rollins, and then we've got, I would imagine, Brock and Bobby for WrestleMania, and I guess the Hurt Business are sort of getting back together. So I guess that's something to keep an eye on. But let's talk about AEW here for a few minutes because obviously MJF and certainly cut a promo that a lot of people are still talking about, and also we see the Acclaim lose the tag team titles. Obviously, that was, I guess, a little bit of a mild surprise at the end of the show. And give me your impressions of AEW here this week.
So it looks like we're getting the Iron Man match, and the promo was pretty good, but I can't think about what you said last week, Tom, where you're saying this is a long match and both these
I know.
guys haven't
Listen. The
wrestled.
guy's wrestled. He's literally wrestled about a dozen matches in over one calendar year.
So this gets interesting for me, where really this could be the defining career moment for MJF to really show is he that generational talent or not? Because it's one thing to wrestle on a daily basis and get the groove, but when you're not wrestling that often, you gotta go up put a performance. Now, definitely if you had to pick someone, you pick the right person in Bryan Danielson. But I am concerned on his part how that's gonna work. Like I'm now intrigued. Can he pull this off for one?
It's so interesting because yesterday I had on, well, 2 days ago now, because obviously we're Saturday in the UK, but 2 days ago I had on a wrestler, and he's going to wrestle in a company where the talent are essentially trainees, and it's 2.5 months between now and, let's say, April the 29th for the Wrestling Appreciation Society. So essentially, MJF, his ring experience in the last year compared to Bryan Danielson is the equivalent of a trainee, a young wrestler. And you have to ask yourself, how are you going to be able to endure and last in a match? Now, listen, MJF is in phenomenal shape. He is a phenomenal wrestler. I take nothing away from him. But to wrestle a 60-minute match when you've only been in the ring a dozen times in over a year, you can't replicate that. Listen, Triple H himself said it at the Royal Rumble press conference. The Rock is in great shape, but he's not in ring shape. Is a whole difference. So I mean, that's why I'm so curious on March the 5th what's going to happen here.
And I'm trying to remember MJF big match last year. He had against John Moxley and CM Punk in the chain match. Both those matches had kind of a little break in between. We saw with Moxley the turning of Warlord leaving that. I mean, CM Punk Warlord turning on MJF.
I think CM Punk and him wrestled twice on pay-per-view, and I think once on Dynamite, if I think. And I think
once on Dynamite, once on pay-per-view. I know that for sure. And John Moxley, Regal came out, so he got a little bit breaks in both those matches to kind of to recap. In a 60-minute pay-per-view match, all the cameras are going to be on you.
Yeah, I don't know how you listen, and that's not something you can all of a sudden go out and get ring shape out of. It's not something that you can go and, hey, I'm going to go practice a 60-minute Iron Man match. I mean, you don't do that. I mean, listen, I said it before. We had on Nicholas Crenson and James Marshall. They wrestled a 30-minute Iron Man match with 5 extra minutes they wound up doing. I think it was actually 2.5 when it was all said and done because the first pinfall had won, and that was a lot. And I asked those guys that moment, well, how are you preparing for a match like this? And they were going over their steps, but they had regularly been in the ring. In fact, they had sometimes wrestled 2 pay-per-views in a month. So, okay, they had the ability. But again, my point goes with MJF that we'll have to see. And what's your impressions on the Acclaimed losing the tag team titles? The AEW fanboys are really upset about that.
I was disappointed in that decision because the Acclaim was so over. Now, I would have been okay if Billy Gunn came out and there was some disruption with the group, with him and his sons, and somehow that cost the Acclaim. But how it was really such a clean win, because it is looking Billy Gunn's going to turn on the Acclaim. I think that.
Yeah, but they didn't do it on Wednesday's show. They still left it as if he didn't.
And then now the point, and that's my point, because they didn't know Wednesday show, now it's going to be like the change. The turn's going to mean nothing at this point because it kind of kills that story. And the other thing I'm interested in, what's going to happen next to the Acclaim? Because we know with AEW, there's a lot of talent there. And the talent seems, when someone has a championship or in a spot, if they lose, they get pushed back. And
let me throw the hypothetical then, going off that. Is this to maybe test these guys single, especially Max Caster? Because that would be, I would think, of the two, would be the more marketable single star, just based on his in-ring skills, his microphone skills, overall image. I mean, is that something that they want to test?
You could, but I don't think the timing's right there either, because you have MJF, you have Bryan, you have Moxley, you have.
Well, Bryan Danielson, listen, he's in the ring now, but you never know what Bryan Danielson. He's got a lot of health issues. You know that.
But you also got other guys. You got Samoa Joe. You got Keith Lee, Adam Cole. Hopefully he returned. Kenny Omega down the road if if he dropped the trio series, you got Pac. There's a lot of individual talent. So I honestly think he's so over at the tag team right now. They're selling merchandise. They're hot. People want to see them. Keep it going. Like I look at RK Bro as an example. I remember Randy Orton saying RK Bro was supposed to be such a short thing. This was supposed to be maybe a month or so, but
That lasted for a while. Yeah, they
how
wound up
hot they
lasting for a
were.
while.
And again, sometimes you gotta give Vince the credit he deserves. When something's hot, you gotta run with it.
No. Listen, I certainly RK Bro had a great run, and listen, maybe the Acclaimed are going to chase the titles for a while. Maybe they're not done yet. Listen, let's
There's
not count them out.
there's too many teams though I feel that are going to get pushed now. Thankfully, the Young Bucks have the trio, but you have FTR, you got the Lucha Bros. Like there's a lot of teams in
Well,
A.
FTR I think would make a lot of
Yeah.
sense based on their resume. Lucha Bros, I agree. Possibly the Young Bucks are with the trios title, which good takes them out of the equation. I mean, so those are some fair points. Anthony Finkel says Friday night leadoff spot with the Madman, Randy Dillon. That was a good one. That was a better nickname than some other ones here. And before I get into the NHL, anything else AEW? Also wanted to ask your thoughts on if you caught MLW Underground on Reels because I actually wound up watching it. So what
I
was
have
your
to figure out how I can get MLW up here in
it's
Canada.
it's
So
on the I don't know if you have it. It's called the Reels channel. It's almost like they do so if you've seen Dark Side of the Ring, if you've seen like a lot of the like music documentaries, well actually Dark Side of the Ring is with Vice. They do almost the profile documentaries and they also do a lot of like music stuff and they have a show it's I think it's like the Patrol, Dawn Patrol, one of these shows. It's like a really apparently it's one of the highest rated shows in cable. And MLW follows up off it. So the real, if you have cable, you probably would have reels somewhere way down in the dial, but that's where it's on.
I'll have to find it and get back to you on that. So
Okay, all right. But anything else AEW then? Anything else that comes to mind before I move on?
AEW, I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Warlow and Joe at this point because it
That's
looks
a
like
good point.
Warlow
Yep.
is going to challenge Joe, and are they going to try to get him back on track? To see, and again, to go back and get Matt Caster, look at Rich Swerve, how they made him drop with Keith Lee, and he was started off, but he really has disappeared. I haven't seen him, so that's why I think splitting the Acclaim is just not a great idea right now.
Well, I wouldn't count the Acclaimed out just yet. We've still got a Dynamite show ahead next Wednesday. We've still got Rampage. I mean, we've still got other things in the pike. I mean, so we'll certainly see. I'm not ready to throw in the towel yet with the Acclaimed. I think the Billy Gunn storyline keeps them going. Obviously, also everybody's watching with Tony Storm and Saraya and Dr. Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter, Jade Cargill and her record undefeated streak. Those are also things that come to mind. Samoa Joe, you mentioned also back with the TNT title. I think he and Wardlow, that feud is not over. So I think that that's going to be good to look at. So there's some things here. Also, Impact Wrestling. I caught Impact last night. I don't know. I'm pretty sure you probably didn't catch Impact, but Impact had some interesting stuff. We saw Joe Hendry and Matt Cardona face off for the I believe it's the Internet Championship there they have an Impact, and certainly Mr. Henry was able to retain. Tommy Dreamer was in the ring with Mickey James. They kind of built up a little bit to Bully Ray, and then Masha Shamovich, I believe it is going to square off with Mickey for her title, and you got Jordan Lynn Grace is still hanging around. So other stuff there at Impact. Impact, I know not everybody is watching Impact, but I've got back into Impact. Also, Josh Alexander and Rich Swann are going to face off at No Surrender for Josh Alexander's in championship. He's actually the longest running TNA or Impact Wrestling champion in history. Kind of little fun fact there. So Impact has definitely gotten good. So all great stuff there. And let's talk about the NHL. I got about 10 or 15 minutes with you, and obviously a lot going on here with the locals. But Randy, I gotta say this. I mean, I heard you speak a lot about the Vancouver Canucks on the Hockey Fan Chat, and I watched the New York Islanders play the Vancouver Canucks. And I don't know if I was missing something, but two things struck to mind. First, the New York Islanders played as poor of a third period as I could ever see a playoff contender play. And the second thing is Rick Tocchet is 3-2-1 as head coach. I mean, has Rick Tocchet maybe turned around the environment in the Vancouver Canucks? And did the New York Islanders play that bad of a third period?
I think the New York Islanders played that bad of a third period. The one thing I think you got to remember with Rick Tocchet was the Canucks had a bye break before the All-Star week. So I think they had time to give Rick Tocchet some time, meet with the players, get to know the players to figure out what was going on. They still have some strong talent in Vancouver with Elias Pettersson and
Yep.
Quinn Hughes. And we
Had
saw
2 goals last night, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
Elias Pettersson is one of the top players in the league. He's not at the top, but he is, I would say, a top 15, 10 center in the league. So you definitely have a strong player there. So and the thing with the Vancouver Canucks is they're in an interesting place now because they're not good enough to make the playoff. They're really trying to build for next year, trying to figure out who's staying, who's going. I usually find with teams at this point, this is where they kind of come out and they start winning these late games all of a sudden. Like I've
Yeah,
seen
they tease you. The Islanders used to do that years ago. They would kind of be 8, 9, 10 games under 500. Then all of a sudden, like that last 15 or 20 games, they played really well, and the record looked better than when they played early in the year. So, yeah, this is that kind of year, especially now that we're really, really close to the deadline. But in some cases, this could be a really interesting Canucks team before I come back to the locals because you have players that are playing A for jobs and a coach that maybe he's coaching long term to be back next season, and maybe they respond. And also, you know what? A guy like Rick Tocchet, he's won a Stanley Cup. He was a very, very good player. I wouldn't say quite a Hall of Famer, but almost a Hall of Famer. He's very well known. He was an assistant coach on the Penguins Stanley Cup teams, who I heard you refer to, and he's an analyst. So maybe those guys might be motivated by somebody like him in the locker room. Could be.
well, definitely Rick Tocchet there for the long term. You said that right there with the history with him and Jim Rutherford. They were part of that both of those back to
Penguins, yep.
back Stanley Cup teams, and so I definitely think Rick Tocchet there for the long term. I'm very interested to see how Rick Tocchet structured the team because I think in the last years or so, there really hasn't been that accountability, that structure to the players and keeping them really in check. And I think that's where, and that was a big reason why they brought Rick Tocchet because people felt here in Vancouver, JT Miller was becoming a little bit of a menace, a sideshow, and they wanted him to keep JT Miller in that place. Now, JT Miller is not a Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, Connor McDavid.
Well,
So it's kind of sad you got to do it for a player like that, but that's the mess they're in. So I think Rick Tocchet can definitely build this team. I think don't believe too much of what you see this year because you're going to see a very different roster for next year, and there's still a lot of work to be done on this Canucks team if they
oh,
want to get any work.
no question about it. And obviously, it's a Canucks team. The last several years, it's kind of been mired in almost obscurity in the league. I mean, what has it been? 1 or 2 playoff appearances. One of those years was in the bubble. So it's really, they haven't had the success that they had in the early part of the last decade, where they were basically a perennial Stanley Cup contender and really should have won the Stanley Cup. I mean, so certainly the Canucks have fallen off. We'll see if they get back, but I do think it's promising developments there. And it kind of reminds me a little bit when the Islanders had fired Jack Capuano and brought in Doug Waite, and all of a sudden the Islanders played really well for a while, and everybody was happy. And then things kind of wore out. Maybe the Canucks will have a little bit of better luck, but I mean, boy, the local teams made quite a splash here. This past week, we see Bo Horvat, who we saw went to the New York Islanders after we went off the air last week, and then the Islanders actually re-signed him because we spoke about Horvat. We spoke, oh, we're going to keep him. Is he not? And he gets the 8-year contract, and then the New York Rangers acquire Vladimir Tarasenko, obviously a target for a lot of teams for a long time. And I mean, break this all down here for some of the local fans here that might be curious to what your thoughts are when it comes to certainly the Islanders re-signing Bo Horvat, but now most notably the New York Rangers acquiring Vladimir Tarasenko, and definitely a win-now move.
So for the Islanders, I think signing Horvat to that long-term deal was a must. They couldn't let him walk. I think it definitely helped because now you have him and Barzal locked up both 8 years going forward, but they still got a lot of work to do with the wing defense, and they got to figure out how to get Sorokin signed. Last night, a huge miss, and I think that might be, they look back on why they missed the playoffs, a game like that.
Well, I think the Capitals game, you're up 3-0 and only get a point, and I think the game in Arizona, I think it's in Glendale, they wound up losing that game, had a lead, didn't get a point in regulation. I mean, they are still, I believe, 1 point behind. The Capitals actually have played more games than the Penguins, so I guess they're still alive, very much alive, but it could come down to those 1 or 2 points. Certainly, we'll find out, but the Islanders, I think, still have some problems. Leave aside their offense. The offense has improved, I agree, but defense is definitely lacking, especially in front. I mean, they played as lazy as a period. I think, like I said, I've ever seen a contending team play. That was embarrassing. I mean, seriously, that was an
And
embarrassing
that's
performance.
where I wonder, would Barry Trotz, another year of Barry Trotz, because I find a lot of this game the Island has been the third period, and this kind of reminds me of the Capitals when they let Barry Trotz walk and they brought in Todd Reardon, where they had great offense, but somehow the defensive system was inputted by Barry Trotz left that stability, and I see some similarities where the Islanders will have some great stretches, but when it comes down to shoving,
They
they got
can't get the
defense.
puck out of their own zone. Did you see the game where there was two or three, almost like I think it was Adam Pelech that just literally gave the puck to the Canuck players? I mean, that was atrocious. I mean, you and I wouldn't have made some of those plays
Exactly.
in behind the goal. I mean, that was embarrassing. I mean, honestly, look, if the Islanders don't make the playoffs, I mean, that is going to be one of the games that you're going to certainly look back on. But what do you make of the Rangers here for the other local team here in the Big Apple? I mean,
The
what's your
Rangers
thoughts
are
on that?
all in. I think they're going all in because one, with how the salary cap is, a contract, when you have a chance, you gotta go in all in. They've learned a lot of lessons last year, and they have two of the best players in the league. They have one of the best defensemen in the league in Adam Fox, one of the
Yep,
best
local
goalies
guy
in
here, sure.
Sirkin, and they have some great assets to Benejev. And I think Tarasenko's been a warrior. He he's won a Stanley Cup. He's been through the good, and let's not forget the bad with the Blues. How many
Yep.
years in the Blues were disappointing? So I think this definitely helped, and they get scoring on the wing, a finisher. Because I think last year against Tampa, they just couldn't find a way to. They were up 2-0, but they couldn't get that third goal in Game 3 to maybe to take
Yep.
the Lightning away. So I think Tarasenko definitely adds finish to this team. There's some Russian connection with him and Panarin. Though the Rangers are going for it this year, and I don't blame them. I think this is the opportunity. Gallant's been to the final, so we'll see how.
Yeah, Gallant's a win now coach. I mean, you
Yeah,
think about his track record, even that year in Florida where they had a team that was really designed to win and they blew the series against the Islanders, lost, I believe it was 2 games in overtime, especially the fifth game. The sixth game, obviously, Tavares wraparound and
three. It was
Monza.
3 games in overtime that playoffs.
But they blew 2 of the games, especially, which I believe
Yeah.
was the sixth game. They were up 2-0, and then the fifth game, I mean, I believe they had a penalty shot in overtime, and I believe it was Thomas Christ that stopped it. So I mean, 2 of the 3 games, they really, I mean, they had a firm grip on, and they firmly outplayed the Islanders in that series. And obviously, you spoke about Gallant in Vegas there. So I mean, you look at Gallant's track record. This is a win now, coach, and if the season were to end today, we get Rangers and Devils in the postseason. So, I mean, where does this leave the Devils, you think, then? Because I would have to think the Devils, their fan base, I mean, Justin Gianelli and some of these others, and Neil Villapiano, I mean, they're going to want to move too to make.
Definitely the Devils are going to have to make a move. I've heard Timo Meyer's name, Brock Besser's name. The Devils, they have the skill. Like I think with Jack Hughes, Jesper Bott, Nico Heischer, they have a lot of skill players. I really think what could really help them is a big power forward that could really make the difference. They really want to show we're a team for real, and this is our time as well. I think a skilled player might be happy, but
So almost like a more skilled version of somebody they used to have, a Brian Boyle, a more skilled version of that.
exactly. And I think Tarasenko would have fit that bill because he's a little bit more physical, but not as much. So it's definitely gonna be interesting who they target at the deadline. And we'll see. This is going to be a very interesting test for the Devils if they do play the Rangers. Because one, it's gonna get physical. Like we've seen Jacob Trouba becoming this hitting machine lately, delivering the blows. So they know they got to be ready for that. So, but
Well, it's playoff. It's playoff hockey. Playoff hockey is always physical, and I find it so ironic also for the poor Toronto Maple Leafs. They're stuck with the Tampa Bay Lightning once again in the first round. It pretty much looks like that's going to be a sure bet there, and also some other teams in the mix in the Eastern Conference. Florida has won 3 in a row, so Florida has gotten themselves back in. Obviously, Florida have been big disappointments. I mean, Buffalo is still hanging around there. Obviously, this is the best Sabres team, as you pointed out on the hockey fan chat, really since they had drafted Jack Eichel. And that was over a decade ago. That's a
yeah,
team. I mean,
been eight
they have the
years.
longest playoff drought in the league. They have the
Yeah.
longest drought. Carolina held it for a long time, but now it's Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo's got games in hand. Can't count them out. I mean, so we'll see if Buffalo's in the mix. Obviously, Islanders are still in the mix. They play Montreal tomorrow early, a rare early game
Super
at the
Bowl
Bell
weekend,
Center.
a lot of early games.
Yeah, weird, which is interesting. And then, I mean, so we'll see about that. Your Capitals obviously are still in the mix, and in the
The
Western
one thing I want to
Yeah,
address with the
jump in.
Capitals is can they make it to the playoffs? Because they are banged up like crazy. No
Well, that's
John
the
Carl.
team. I think the Islanders, if they're going to make the playoffs, are going to have to leapfrog because Pittsburgh's got the games in hand on both teams, and you really just don't see Pittsburgh's got 5 games in hand on the Islanders. Randy,
It's been such a Jekyll and Hyde season, and the question.
Yeah, but you can't count on them losing all 5 games. Realistically, they'll get, let's say, out of 10 points, let's say 6.
But Tristan Jarry is hurt again. So I think this is going to be the question: do the Penguins address goaltending? Because I think last year if they would have addressed the goaltending, I think the Rangers would have beat the Rangers because they had Shesterkin and Shellshock.
Oh, listen, they were up a couple different leads in that series, and
3-1, multiple 2-goal leads,
2-0, 3-1. Yep, no, definitely. But I'm still going to say, and I'm comfortable saying this, still that the Penguins will make the playoffs just because of the games in hand. I mean, they got 5 games in hand on the Islanders. They're not going to lose all 5 in regulation. Realistically, if they get 5 or even 6 out of 10, that gives them an added cushion. That pretty much all but assures them a postseason spot. I mean, that would put them 6 points ahead of the Islanders, and the Capitals, they've got 3 games in hand on. In the Western Conference, very quickly here, we've got a logjam when it comes to the Avalanche, Wild, and the Predators. The Predators have only played 49 games, so they're 4 points behind, but they've got the 2 games in hand, and Avalanche had played better going into the All-Star break, but have lost a couple in a row. Winnipeg has played for the most part pretty well, though they've slumped a little bit of late. Dallas is in first place, best record in the Western Conference, and then you've got the Golden Knights who have come back to take the lead in first place, and you've got the Kraken who've come back down to earth a little bit. The Edmonton Oilers are now tied with them. You've got a logjam, really, Randy. You've got basically 3 teams there tied. The Kings have 1 game in hand, and the Calgary Flames are also alive, another team that's been a little bit of a disappointment. So it's pretty much a dogfight in the Western Conference, to say the least. Anything else you want to say on the NHL before I get to closing thoughts?
On the West, I'm interested with Calgary, Seattle, and LA. Nashville, I don't, unless they can go to another level. I thought they were going to make the play, but how the season go, I don't know if they can play.
But they got the games in hand, though. You have to give them.
I think they have tougher teams to play in the Central with the likes saying
the Winnipeg and Colorado.
Yeah, and Dallas with Calgary. They talked about the summer. You may have heard it. They said it could have been the summer of Brad Treliving. I know I heard it last year with getting Huberdeau.
Yep, we spoke about that. Yep.
And right now it could be a nightmare because if they might miss, and Jonathan Huberdeau going to $10.5 million cap hit next year.
Well, I think the thing that might save them is Seattle is finally coming back down to earth. I think that's going to be the key. If Seattle can
2 big blowouts to New York teams, so that was
right. And I think if you're a team that's in a playoff spot, you really can't have those kind of games. So I mean, that team could be coming back down to earth. They're an interesting team to see what they do at the deadline. And then you got the Kings there also.
They need a save. The Kings need a save at this point. I'm interested in who they address because with the Islanders, the way the goalie market could have turned out, they could have really snagged maybe a second to first round pick for Varlamov. Because some teams are desperate for goaltenders.
Well, I don't think the Islanders, though, I would have to think they're not selling.
They can't anymore at this point because of the extension of Bo Horvat and getting him. You already showed that, but I think if they didn't do that, they could have somehow fetched maybe a second round pick or even send Varlamov and maybe send a bad contract off or take something in return to maybe help out. But
no, I don't think you sell. I mean, unfortunately, in Varlamov, you're probably not going to re-sign him anyway because he's an older goalie. You gave him a 4-year deal after 2019, so I think you're kind of stuck there, unfortunately. So for the Islanders, I mean, you're not really a Stanley Cup contender. You're not a bottom team, but
they're in the worst spot possible now. They're not bad enough. They're not good enough possibly to make the playoffs, but they're not bad enough to rebuild.
No, and the players that they have. I mean, the only players I guess you could move. I mean, Josh Bailey has, I think, one more year after this year. I mean, he wouldn't bring you a lot. I mean, he would be somebody that you could trade. Other than that, I mean, Anders Lee, nobody wants that contract based on the years left. I mean, maybe
Brock,
Nelson.
with the year he's had, I was talking to Chris today about it. Like the year Brock Nelson had, like how in the offseason you could explore trading him, but I think now that's unlikely. They're in a death threat. The Kings, they need a save. Quick has played bad. Calvin Peterson is in the minors. Their hope is on Phoenix Copley. So that's the thing right now.
Well, the only thing that I would say, because I got to get to close this, because I got a few minutes with Rob Moroska. I got a contest to announce with him. But the one thing that would concern me on the Kings is they're a minus in the goal differential. That would be the one thing I'm concerned a little bit about. And if you're a team in a playoff chase that's a negative in goal differential, that would be the one thing I would be concerned of. But Randy, obviously, we spoke the gauntlet here. And I got to get to Moroska, this guy Moroska here with his contest. So I want to give you the floor, give you some closing thoughts. Anything you want to plug, share, say, and floor is yours, my friend.
For sure, thank you. I'll make it quick because I know we're short on time. Definitely, I'm interested to see in the NHL where Patrick Kane's going to land, Ryan O'Reilly. We've seen the gates open with Tarasenko. I definitely think we'll get more trades to come. With WWE, I think it was announced Madcap going to face Gunther at Elimination Chamber. I'm interested because Madcap has shown some ins and ups, but I'm interested to see how he can put a performance on with Gunther. AEW, hopefully there's more of a build between the Acclaim and the Guns. And on a football note, I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl on Sunday.
You know what? That makes two of us, Randy, because I got the Kansas City Chiefs also. I got them for a couple of different reasons. So maybe we'll have a funny one-liner on that next week. But, yeah, AEW, listen, I don't think the Acclaimed and the Guns are done by any chance. And Madcap Moss, on paper, he looks like a guy that you could build as a credible contender. He's got Emma. Emma looks great as always. He looks great himself, Madcap Moss. I mean, that's a guy that's kind of been in limbo a little bit. Maybe this gives him...
The one thing I just want to mention, Tom, Baron Corbin, is he a jobber now? That's the question. Has he become a jobber?
Well, you know what what they're saying right now about Baron Corbin, he's got the worst spot on TV because he's the guy that they call the bathroom break.
Yep.
Which is you don't want to be bathroom break in wrestling. They say it's the worst. The worst spot to be.
I remember a few years ago, Constable Corbin. I think that when he was at his highest, now he's at his lowest. I think he's.
Yeah, you know what? He's not. Unfortunately, that's the guy that ended Kurt Angle's career.
Yep,
that's the guy that ended Kurt Angle's career. You would have thought that would have gave him the biggest rub, and it didn't. So I don't know, man.
He's been a guy who showed he can be potential the top heel, but never could really succeed.
Yeah, because I don't think he has the mic skills. Obviously, put JBL with him. Yeah. I think his ring skills are okay. I just don't know. I don't think he's ever quite had. Unfortunately, that might be a guy that just may never listen. I just told you he's bathroom break. I mean, his
exactly.
I don't know, man. But Randy, great stuff. Everybody follow Randy Dillon at Randy DHILLON on Instagram and Twitter. And we'll speak with you soon, my friend. And looking forward to next Friday. And maybe if you're around post-Chamber show, but we'll see.
Sounds good, Tom. Take care.
You got it. And that was Randy Dillon, and we're joined here by Rob Moroska here. Rob Moroska here was going to talk a few minutes on baseball. There's no baseball news, man. I'm sorry. Yeah. I mean, there's really no baseball news, but you got a contest for those that are listening and watching here, and talk about this contest and who is the lucky winner here from your latest contest.
Well, there's no winner yet because it's going to be
I thought we had a winner to announce because I was like, what are you coming on here for? I mean, no site.
It's going to be a spring training tops now contest where I have a couple of cards, and whoever wins gets to pick what card they want and, whatever team they're a fan of. So the cards are going to start going up during the week, and then, we'll have a winner for probably the first week of spring training. So that's basically what the contest is. And I just wanted to also real quick, a couple of quick things. The Mets are going to have a Super Bowl add-on. People probably saw that already on the Super Bowl for the Super Bowl. It's pretty good. It just shows me that Cohen is really, he's an excellent owner, and to pay for an ad on the Super Bowl, that just shows that he means business.
All right, I mean, we'll certainly see. Obviously, we'll see if the Mets can mean business on the field, and obviously this Topps Now set. Do you have the set? You actually have the physical set for this?
Yeah, I have the cards. I'm going to start.
Okay, all right, so that's
I'm
cool.
going to start posting pictures of it. And I just wanted to do a fast plug for my friend's book again because I got a
Neil
copy from
Berenger,
him.
yep.
Yeah. Um, Neil's book, Haha History, #1 bestseller on Amazon. It's a funny book. So if you want to laugh a day, go check it out on Amazon. And basically, that's why I was coming on tonight. I mean,
Oh
if
well,
you,
I mean Neil Berenger. I mean, we'll certainly. I'm sure
yeah, Neil
everybody up there
Berliner.
can
His
go.
name's Neil
Yeah, pull up
Berliner.
the book one more time for those that are listening and watching here.
Okay, there it is.
Okay.
It's an excellent book. It's
Oh wow,
funny.
yeah, it looks like definitely an interesting read there, and certainly spring training is coming up. I believe spring training. I think the first strips of pitchers and catchers are later this week coming up here, so we're not that far away. It looks like.
No, it looks good. Although, a lot of Mets are not going to be there for all of spring training because the Mets have 10 players that are going to the World Baseball Classic. So
Are you going to be
I
watching
guess
the
that's
World
the
Baseball
most.
Classic?
Yeah. I was interested in it. I don't like that it's during spring training. These guys, the guys could get injured. It could mess them up. So, I've never been into it, but there are a lot of Mets playing, so I'm going to check it out. And our old friend Matt Harvey, it looks like he's going to be pitching for Italy.
Well, I mean, Matt Harvey, I guess, hanging around still. I mean, I know he's had some problems off the field. I guess maybe an audition for yet another potential comeback out there. I know we last saw him with the Orioles for a little bit, and we saw him obviously with a number of different teams. I think the Reds, the Angels. I mean, he certainly bounced around over the past several years. So maybe his latest audition, I guess, possible here.
Yeah, who knows? With him, we'll have to see how he pitches. I don't know if he has anything left in the tank.
Well, I mean,
He
listen, I mean, you know what? Their arms are almost like backup quarterbacks in football. I mean, if you got an arm and he's got a name on the back of his baseball card, somebody might want to take a feeler on Matt Harvey. I mean, obviously, again, he certainly had some, amazing success. He struggled here the past several years, but again, a guy like him has bounced around. So maybe if he puts a couple of starts together, I mean, maybe he gets an invite. I mean, that's the one way I could look at it, I guess.
Yeah, well, if he goes out and pitches well in the World Baseball Classic, if he pitches well, then you never know. Someone might sign him. I mean, there's teams out there, like the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Royals, the lower tier teams that could take a chance on him. You never know. It depends. I mean, let's see how he pitches if he pitches then.
Right, and obviously we saw the Royals have Zach Greinke, who pitched there in the past last year. Obviously, Pirates also bring back Andrew McCutchen, and then also I see here very quickly that the Mets are trying to bring back Keith Hernandez. What's the latest on that? Is he coming back to the booth, or we still a little bit of ways to go?
Well, they said today that they're coming closer, so he probably will be back. I mean, it's the Wilpons, of course, but I mean, it would be stupid not to bring Keith back. So it looks like they're getting closer now. But if he wasn't to come back, there was another name that was mentioned that would be a good replacement for him, and that would be Curtis Granderson. That's what I
Played
read
for the
today.
Mets. Yeah, played for the Mets for a few years. We've seen him on the TBS playoff booth
Yeah.
there. Seen him for MLB Network. I think he was working for the league, I think, as a special assistant, I think, in some capacity during the regular season. Also, former Yankee. Yeah, I mean, Granderson, I think, would make a little bit of sense. I think Met fans, that were so used to Darling, Hernandez, and Cone that there would be a little bit of shock there, I think, when it comes to maybe a Curtis Granderson, or frankly, anybody else that's going to get the baton passed to them. I mean, we'll certainly see. Obviously, again, Granderson had a couple good years with the Mets. Played 4 years for the team. I mean, certainly would be an interesting move. I know also very quickly somebody who's not going to be in the booth, and most baseball fans are going to be happy about that. But Carlos Beltran, I see, is returning to the Mets.
Yeah, he's going to be in the front office as an assistant. You know what? I'm glad that he's back with the organization. I mean, all right, the cheating scandal, but everyone who was punished basically came back and got jobs. It's over with. he was a great player for the Mets. Everyone, just remembers that third call strike in the
Well, I mean, it
playoff.
was a big spot there. He didn't
It-
swing, unfortunately. That's going to be what a lot of Met fans are going to remember him for. But yeah, no, he definitely had some great years with the Mets. I mean, no question, was certainly one of the better players the franchise has had over the past 20 years. But that one play, I mean, listen, you were there, and
yeah,
a lot of
I
people are gonna never forget that, unfortunately.
no, they're not. But he's a smart baseball mind, so I think he'll do a good job in the front office. And you know what? Let's welcome him back to the
Well, I mean, I
organization.
think the question's going to be is does he get into the Hall of Fame? I think that's going to be the big question. Obviously, vote totals here weren't very strong. He's got a ways to go, but I mean, obviously, I would think he would go in as a Met. I know as a Royal, he had a lot of success. Had the 2 stints with the Astros, runs with the Yankees, the Cardinals, the Giants. But would he be going in as a Met? You think?
Yeah, I think he would be going in as a Met. That's his best years were with the Mets. He played the longest for the Mets. So I definitely think if he goes into Cooperstown, he will be going in wearing a Mets cap.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Do they hold the whole cheating scandal against him? And obviously, we saw it, but he should have been the Mets manager, obviously, right before
Yeah.
COVID, and that didn't work out. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him on these future votes. I mean, certainly, numbers, I think, would put him in. I don't think he's 100% slam dunk, but I think we said this even when he retired years back that he's probably a Hall of Famer. Gold Gloves certainly speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Defensively, was a great outfielder. Definitely had some great power years with the Royals and the Mets, certainly, most notably with both those teams. Had some success, okay success with the Cardinals for a little bit also. Yankees had some moments. I mean, definitely, though, a guy, I think at the end of the day, if you look at the back of his baseball card and kind of the success, I think he's close to about 2,800 hits, close to 440 home runs, almost very similar to an Andre Dawson. Batting average almost identical. I mean, probably a little bit more Gold Gloves in All-Star games. So yeah, I mean, I think we've said this before millions of times. Yeah, Beltran, if he's going to go into the Hall of Fame, would have to be as a Met. And anything else before we get to closing thoughts that you want to get off your chest baseball-wise? I know we're all waiting for baseball to come back, and this is what they always say after the Super Bowl on Sunday, that we certainly go back and get a little closer to baseball. And if you look at the weather here in New York, this for most of this winter, I think we're going to get some baseball here very soon.
Yeah, this winter, this has been one of the best winters, of all time in New York. I mean,
Yeah.
no snow.
I
It
ain't
feels
complaining. I mean, some people, I know the
yeah.
Staten Island Advance every day has been writing in the front page of the paper, we might get snow or it could be snow. I'm like, do you really want to go through a blizzard and a snowstorm? It was funny because while they're saying that they had a story in the back of the paper today showing like we had the winter of 1978 had like 51 and a half inches of snow at this point. I mean, you really want to go back to 51 inches of snow right now? I don't.
Well, they probably do because back then they had circulation. Now they
Well,
don't have
that's true.
circulation.
Now they have droplets. And that's why the building is going to be sold, and the community is very against that. But that's a political topic, which I don't want to get into. But the point is, yeah, no, I mean, listen, this has been a great winter, and I think it shows that baseball is right around the corner. And I think from today, if I'm not mistaken, we're just about 6.5 weeks from the actual start of the season, because today is February the 10th, which
Yeah.
would mean we're less than 7 weeks away formally of baseball.
Yep. So let's just pray no one gets hurt in the World Baseball Classic. Let's hope everything goes all right. Let's hope that it doesn't, ruin their chemistry together. That's what I'm trying to
Well, I
think.
mean, look, ultimately it's tough. We had this conversation the last time they did the WBC, and I guess you could do it theoretically December, January, but then people look at it and say, well, the season just ended then, and they do this only for a certain amount of years. So I mean, it's a slippery
Yeah.
slope. And you're never going to please everybody, but we're going to try and please everybody with you, my friend. Obviously, great job as always. We'll certainly
Thank you.
see the announcement for the contest winner. So I want to give you the floor. Any closing thoughts, any social media that you want to plug, and floor is yours, my friend, and fire away.
Thanks. You could reach me on Facebook at Rob Maraska and Twitter at R Maraska. And I just want to say, thanks for letting me come on tonight for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I want to get you on. I know with the last couple times, we no baseball, man. I mean,
there's not. Yeah,
after this week, there'll be some drops because we'll have the WBC. I saw in the Staten Island Advance they were talking a little bit about that almost putting the seeds out there, planting them for the Yankee season. They'll get a little bit of the Mets talk over the weekend, I think, in the Advance as well. So we'll definitely have a little bit more stuff. There's obviously some players will report next week, and as we get closer, I think toward the end of the month, we'll have games. So great stuff, my friend. And everybody follow you on Twitter at R Maraska, Rob Maraska on Facebook as well. And keep up the good work, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
And also, Anthony Finkel wants to give you a shout out. Want to make sure we get that in. Anthony.
Hey, Anthony.
Anthony Finkel. The napkin, right, Anthony Finkel. And Chiefs and Eagles. Real quick, who you got?
Eagles, even though I want the Chiefs to win.
Even though you're a Jersey guy. Wow, going for the Eagles there. Wow, okay, all right.
I'm just predicting they're going to win, but I rather see Kansas City win. I don't want to see the Eagles win.
Oh, that makes sense because you originally were in Jersey, and I can't imagine Jersey guys going for the Eagles.
I don't want to see the Eagles win, but I think they may. But anyway, thanks, and I'll catch you next week. Thanks.
You got it. And that was Rob Maraska, our longest tenured analyst. And we're joined here by one of the first of a few people here. That is the brute force Brad Weiss. The brute force Brad Weiss. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Tom. How are you?
I'm good. A lot to talk about here. NBA trade deadline, we've got a lot to talk with. We've got our Golden Eagles, unfortunately, had some tough losses, and we'll get to that. We're also joined here by somebody needs to turn down their radio. That's
it's my daughter's got a birthday party going on, so I'm going to mute while I'm not talking. So
okay, cool. All
right.
We're joined here by Chris. Chris, how you doing? I hope the party is going well here.
Good. Yeah, they're fine inside. Sorry.
Okay, cool. Very cool. I'm going to mute you now. And we're joined here also by Justin Gianelli, and I also believe we're going to have Joseph Bostrom here in a second. I got to find his email address because I just realized he's going to come in a second. But Justin, how are you there, my friend?
Doing good. Doing good.
All right, a lot to get into here tonight. Obviously, speaking about all the latest happenings here in the world of sports and baseball, football, you name it. And certainly we'll get into that here. And let's talk about first some of the NFL News Awards winners. Obviously, a bunch of different people won some things. And I'll go with you, Justin, first, and the rest of the guys. And while I wait for Joey Bostrom, and any surprises on this year NFL Awards winners, Justin Gianelli?
No, not really. I think all the award winners came pretty much to no surprise. Pretty much expected Mahomes to win MVP. It was pretty much a slam dunk. Daboll wins Coach of the Year. And then you got the two Jet rookies, Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson winning Offensive Defensive Rookie of the Year. And certainly a little surprised that Micah Parsons didn't get more consideration for Defensive Player of the Year, but I thought Nick Bosa was a very worthy candidate. 18.5 sacks this year. And then, of course, Justin Jefferson, landslide runaway for Offensive Player of the Year.
And Nick Bosa also Defensive Player of the Year, which I thought was a landslide.
Right, exactly. Which made me a little surprised that Micah Parsons didn't get more consideration, but not really too much surprise. I kind of thought maybe Justin Jefferson would get more MVP votes, but we've also never seen a wide receiver get MVP. And you thought maybe last year Cooper Kupp had an opportunity and he didn't, and went to Rodgers. So I think everything was pretty according to the way we all thought it was.
All right, here, and let's bring Chris in here for a minute. I'm going to unmute Chris. So, Chris, for you, any thoughts that come to mind when it comes to our awards winners?
No, you know what? I would say they got it right this year. I didn't see any surprises at all. Everyone kind of went the way that everybody kind of thought it would go. MVP. Mahomes looked like he was going to get it. With Hurts missing 2 games, I think that hurt him a lot. No pun intended, but that probably killed his shot at it. But everything else seemed all right. Obviously, offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year went to the guys on the Jets, which was great. Offensive rookie of the year, you probably could have went maybe in another way. You could have made an argument, but Sauce Gardner was a no-doubter. But I think the rest of the awards were, no surprises.
And another technical former Jet won, and Smith comeback player of the year. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So all great stuff there. And the Brute Force Brad Weiss, obviously, certainly looking forward to what you have to say later on when it comes to the NBA trade deadline. I'm going to save that toward the end of the show because I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about that. But anything that caught you to surprise you on the NFL awards winners? Obviously, locally, Brian Dable gets Coach of the Year, and we wind up seeing Geno Smith. For those locally might have a vested interest in what he does as a free agent. He was Comeback Player of the Year, and then also we saw when it came to defensive and offensive Rookie of the Year, we see Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner win it. So anything the Brute Force come to mind?
No, because you know what? Captain Obvious could have predicted this one. I mean, come on. I mean, the most surprising thing that happened in the NFL awards was seeing Damar Hamlin on stage with all the medical personnel and all the people that saved his life. That was probably the most surprising thing to see. All right, because ultimately there was no surprises. All right, I mean, come on. Captain Obvious knew, everybody knew, all right, who was going to win these awards, okay? It wasn't even worth watching, really, because you knew, the suspense, who's going to win.
I wasn't watching. Listen, I'll be honest, I wasn't watching. I was going back and forth, regrettably, with the Islanders game and wrestling. So
yeah, I'll be honest, too. I wasn't watching. I got to see the highlights of it.
Basketball. Yeah, you were probably at a basketball court somewhere.
I was on the court, 100%. But listen, I mean, come on. I mean, it was so obvious. I mean, everybody knew that Dable was going to win Coach of the Year. The Rookies of the Year, yeah. I mean, it's great to see two Jets get it. I think it says a lot about the direction of the team right now and what we're doing to get two players. And not only that, we talk about a lot of teams like my team I root for in the NBA, the New York Knicks, who could never get a draft right? The Jets finally have proven that they did get a draft right, and they did it really well. They've been drafting really well. So props to them. I think that's really all that we need to say because if you want to talk about surprises, I mean, come on. I could get a better surprise tomorrow than I got in these NFL awards. I mean, there was no surprise to be there because everything was pretty obvious, and anyone could have predicted that, including John Gonzalez could have predicted that.
Anthony Franklin could have wrote on a napkin and predicted the awards. That would have been the most obvious one, right?
Come on. Anyone could have predicted it. I mean, the guy next door could have predicted it. So
he probably could have.
It was pretty obvious.
Yeah, I think most of these, when I had them in my notes, and I know Justin was posting them on the Twitter group, and we're joined by Joseph Bostrom here. Obviously, we know Joey very well on Sportswire. We'll get to Joey in a second. But, yeah, when I wrote down the majority of the awards winners, I was like, yeah, next. Whereas last year we had a little bit more of a discussion on it. But we'll come back to the game here in a second, maybe get a thought in the Pro Bowl for kicks. But, Joey, how you been? And any thoughts on the awards winners? Obviously, locally, Brian Dable, Giants, wins Coach of the Year. We see Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson win it, offensive and defensive Rookie of the Years. And an old friend or foe, depending on how you see it, certainly at the end of the season, hurt us there in that Jets-Seahawks game. Geno Smith, Comeback Player of the Year. So, any thoughts there, Joey?
I have no issues. Pretty much, what happened was exactly what I thought was going to happen. I was happy for Geno Smith. He had a heck of a year. Gardner and Wilson, Dable really deserved it because I didn't see that coming. The Giants making the playoffs and winning a playoff game.
And Kyle Shanahan was second, though. He came on strong and got a lot of votes there. Yep.
Mahomes MVP, I agree with it. Burrow, that could have gone either way, both of them. But I had no problem with it. I didn't watch too much of it, but I have no problem with any of it.
I don't really think most people really watched it. Anthony Finkel, I know, definitely didn't watch it. He is with us, though, watching us. He says, "What's up, boys?" Obviously, big shout out to Anthony Finkel and everybody else that is watching. So I want to ask a fun question before I get to the burning question and what everybody thinks here in the Super Bowl. But did anybody watch the Pro Bowl on Sunday?
No. I got a little bit of it, a little bit.
All right, so because I actually wound up watching it, what did you think? Was it more interesting than years past? I kind of was into it for a little
Yeah,
bit.
Tom. Listen, we've covered everything from the old days during COVID when they were
Do you
playing.
remember? I was gonna say, do you remember when we were covering? Remember when they had on like those camera phones? They were doing like the horse.
Yeah, they had NBA horse.
That was embarrassing.
Horse,
You remember
and then some other nonsense that we covered. All right,
I
listen.
think was it the charity game or something? It was like a
there was a whole nonsense that we
That
covered.
was embarrassing. The brute force. That was embarrassing.
It
I
was
would burn that tape.
crazy. But what I'll say is this. Some people thought that you could compare that to what we saw in the Pro Bowl, but I actually liked what I saw in the Pro Bowl. I really did. I liked the flag football idea.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I thought it was a good idea. First of all, for people who don't know, or people who don't live maybe in the United States or whatever, who are outside the country, right? Flag football is becoming a big thing. It really is, especially for younger kids. I have a lot of kids, right, that I see playing basketball. Oh, we play flag football too. That's pretty cool, and they really enjoy it. So I think to see NFL players playing flag football, and listen, the Pro Bowl games always stunk anyway. So to make it a little more exciting,
I gotta be honest, I was far more into the Pro Bowl than the NHL All-Star game. I'm sorry, but the NHL All-Star game, I could not get into that.
I won't get into that one.
Yeah, that was. I gotta be honest, I was not to death, but that was just I couldn't watch it.
Not the more entertaining one, the NHL for sure. Yeah. But the Pro Bowl, I think, improved. I think with the flag football game, I liked some of the other little things they did, like the competition where they had to pull the weights and then they had to pull the wall. I thought that was pretty cool.
I like that. I don't know. There was something about the in between, how they did the competitions and how they kind of put everybody in, and I thought it was interesting.
And it was cool, also with Peyton and Eli like competing, calling plays and all that. I thought it was cool.
Was on the sideline. We saw Ray Lewis on the sideline. I kind of liked it. I was into it.
From what I got to watch, I thought it was a good idea. I thought the flag football idea is a very good one because the regular games themselves have just been not entertaining. No one's watching. I think the flag football element will get the kids to be interested in it more, and I think that's what the NFL needs.
I got to be honest, the NBA All-Star Game is by far the best of the All-Star games. Baseball's game, I'm very home run derby at times I'm into. The NHL's game really can't get into, and then the Pro Bowls up until this year I couldn't get into. I'll get to some of the guys here in a second, but Anthony Finkel's got a couple comments. Nice Revis jersey. He was my favorite Jet till he went to the Patriots and came back for the money. Anthony also liked the football. Said, I think flag football will grow in America due to CTE. I don't have children yet, but I wouldn't let my sons play contact football until later in high school or college. Baseball, basketball, soccer, golf, tennis, or flag football. I'm going to answer for you, Anthony Finkel, because I know you're a big golfer out there in Marine Park. You would have your kids play golf. You'd have golf one. You'd have basketball second.
It's actually not a bad idea, Tom. Listen,
he lives by Marine Park, which is, for those that are listening, is in a beautiful neighborhood in Brooklyn. And I've worked in Marine Park, and so that's a beautiful place to play golf. So I would say golf is going to be his number one for his kids.
Why not teach your kids how to play golf? Another sport that if you could get good at, you could play it for a long time. So,
hey, listen, I had a godfather. He was playing golf till he was like dead. So you never know. But for the rest of you guys here, and I'll unmute Chris for a second. Anybody watch the Pro Bowl? Any thoughts on it?
I watched parts of it. You know what, the part I like the skills part better than anything else.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. But the game, it's never going to be good because the players don't want to do it, right? To me, that's where it comes down to. And I think what makes it even worse is that they're doing it the week before the Super Bowl, and now you're not including, the two best teams in the whole league to be involved. So now you got a guy like Tyler Huntley showing up as an All-Pro, which makes no sense, as a Pro Bowler. That guy doesn't deserve to be a Pro Bowler. That's ridiculous. But to me, I think also get the players together and say, guys, what do you want to do? Because the All-Star games in every sport is for the fans. It's not for the players. So they should do it for the players. For the fans. Yeah. Right? So they got to do something. But I like the skills competition. I thought that was the better part. But I think the flag football has got to be something that they got to do because a real game is never going to happen. It's going to happen, but it's going to be basically a glorified flag football game anyway. So you may as well just make it a flag football game. But I have to disagree with you, Tom, real quick.
All
The
right,
baseball All-Star game is hands down, and it's not even close, the best All-Star game out of the four. Easily. There's no comparison. The NBA, NHL game they're a joke. They're just
the NHL game. They tried.
They're a joke. There's no defense. They're just all right. Just move down, shoot, score, whatever. That's all that is. Baseball, at least there's some kind of competition. Like you could see that there is a little bit of competition. The other ones, there's none. I think what helped. Well, the football one is after the season, so that one's different. But the baseball one is in the middle of the season. So I think there's still
baseball at least is center stage. It's the only thing going on. You got the home run derby the day before. All right, I give you that.
You can't fake baseball. Like you can't all of a sudden just. Do they maybe groove a pitch here or there? Yeah, but they're not. They're not. Just casually out there throwing a baseball because that's not good for their arm. They got to throw the way they're used to throwing. So it's really hard to fake baseball. So it looks the most real of the four.
What do you think that you got, Brad? Before I get to Joseph,
I was quickly going to say I don't completely disagree with Chris, but I will defend the NBA All-Star Game, especially of recent years.
I like the NBA
because
game.
I think they actually corrected it to a somewhat of a point. When they now have the target number and the players actually play hard at the end of the game for that target number for the charities. So I do think the NBA game has improved. I know that in the past it's been absolutely horrendous and just a joke, but I do think over the last couple of years, especially since Adam Silver has been the commissioner, I think they've really improved the game, and I think it's been a more entertaining game. Now, if you want to talk about the dunk contest, then we could talk about one of the worst tragic things ever in recent memory. But, the All-Star game itself, I think, has been improved for the NBA.
I 100% agree. In fact, I actually look forward to watching this year's All-Star game. For you, Joey Bostrom, obviously, I know you watch all these games. You have any thoughts on the Pro Bowl? Do you like it, dislike it compared to the other sports before I move on?
I didn't see it, but I was a big fan of the old school format, NFC versus AFC. I didn't watch it. I didn't catch up on it. The NHL All-Star game didn't watch either. My two favorites, the Major League Baseball that All-Star game is fantastic. The NBA All-Star game, I don't like the captain. They got LeBron as one captain and Giannis Steele. I don't like that. I grew up with the East versus the West, and so they didn't play defense. I didn't care. I came to see the best players: Garnett, Bryant, Shaq, Duncan, all those guys. So the NBA All-Star game it's improved a little bit, but I missed that East versus West competition, and so I didn't watch the Pro Bowl, but I agree with Chris. Major League Baseball has the best All-Star game.
It's gotten better, but I still think that I'm with Brad. I think the NBA game, that's really baseball. It's okay. I think they've done a better job in reimagining it, but I think the NBA game, I actually don't care for the East-West thing anymore. I think it's if they're picking players and teams and we're getting to see players, and I kind of like it. I like how TNT is done with that. And Anthony Finkel says, good networking opportunities on the golf course. Absolutely. He goes on about something I said about you playing golf. I got to kind of move off that, Anthony. Sorry, man. But obviously, we'll see. Last thing I want to ask everybody on the Pro Bowl, would it be better if the Pro Bowl actually was done the week after the Super Bowl? That's been a debate that people have had. But anybody have a thought? Chris, I see you have your head. Go ahead.
Well, I personally don't like the extra week between the championship game and the Super Bowl. It's just to, build it up even more. You can't build up the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is the Super Bowl, right? So there's so much you could build up in that situation. So for me, I think get rid of that extra week, move the Super Bowl up right after the championship game, the week after. And then the week after that, you make your Pro Bowl. That's all. And it'll be the same amount of time. And then you could have the best of the best playing at that game. But again, it's probably still going to be, a skills competition one day, and then the flag football the next, which if that's what it's got to be, then that's what it's got to be. I mean, you're not going to get a real game in NFL. Like like Justin said, you can't fake baseball. It's the same thing with football. I mean, you could fake it, but you see what's going to happen on the field. It's just, it's a, it's a glorified, flag game, flag football game. So you may as well do the flag football, make it a little bit more serious, but it was still more for fun because it's for the fans. That's what these all-star games are for.
Let me throw one scenario out there, a fun one for anybody here. Would it be better if it was like flag football on a beach, or if it was somewhere not in a football?
You might be worried more about injuries, though, right? On the beach. That's how it does. I like that idea. I'm sure players would love it too, but now you're getting into the that area where there might be an injury, running in the sand. You never know.
Yeah,
you want to jump in there, Dustin? I see you want to jump in.
The guys don't want to be. Guys don't want to be there anyway. You had Josh Allen last week at the Pro-Am, playing golf, and I know he didn't make the Pro Bowl this year, but Aaron Rodgers was there too. You got guys wanting to go do other things. It is their off season, so I don't think it matters whether it's the week because it used to be the week after the Super Bowl for a while, but I don't think it makes a difference. They wanted it to be in between the Super Bowl because they wanted them to be more invested, and that's still the players just don't care, and so I just think it's meaningless, honestly.
Wasn't
For
the
you,
Pro
Brad,
Bowl?
Go ahead, Joey. I see you jumping. Go ahead, Joey.
It wasn't the Pro Bowl always after the Super Bowl to begin with, and they just moved it to like in between.
I think 7. Yeah,
maybe about the last 10 or so years, maybe a little.
I was gonna say it's at least about 8 or 9 years, right? Because Joey's right. In the 2000s, it used to always be. In the 90s, it was after the Super Bowl. Then you had the goofy. And ESPN used to carry the game for most of that time, I think, as well.
Because I remember, here's my issue about it. Because now you have the championship games, and you have the Pro Bowl, then you have the Super Bowl. What if, I'm trying to make an example out of somebody. Let's say Aaron Rodgers is playing in the Pro Bowl, and the Packers are playing in the Super Bowl the next week. And something happens, right? He can't play in the Super Bowl. And that's why I think the Pro Bowl should be the last game.
Well, he's not playing in. Well, but if Aaron Rodgers is in the Super Bowl,
maybe not Aaron Rodgers, but somebody lesser, but has to play in the Super Bowl the next week. I don't.
But they wouldn't be there because they've always
they would
had
opt
the travel
out.
exception.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I guess but I always enjoyed it. The last, we watched the Super Bowl and then the next week the Pro Bowl and that'd be it. And
it was part of viewership as well because people view the Super Bowl as the last event. They're not thinking about the Pro Bowl the next week either.
Yeah, I think the Super Bowl, I guess you could say it should be the last event, but then again, you look at it and, I mean, how do you do it? I mean, Brad, you have any thought on, does it matter if the Super Bowl's before the Pro Bowl or the Pro Bowl's after? Does it matter? Or as a player who played and the coach, does it mean anything, a difference?
I mean, I'm actually with Justin on this one. Listen, everyone's goal, first of all, when you come into the NFL season, nobody's like, all right, I want to make the Pro Bowl. I want to make the Pro Bowl. Right? Everybody's thinking about winning the Super Bowl. That's what they're thinking about.
Well, if your contract says if you make the Pro Bowl, you get
but you can still make the Pro Bowl, right, and then not participate in the Pro Bowl, right, and make the Super Bowl. So no one really is like going crazy to be in the Pro Bowl, right? As Chris said earlier, we had Tyler Huntley in the Pro Bowl.
I know. When I saw him,
that doesn't tell you anything. I mean, it's not like Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen are clamoring to go play in the Pro Bowl, right? They don't really care enough, So I don't think it would make much of a difference if you switched. I think even the players, if they got in the Super Bowl and they won the Super Bowl, it's not going to be like the next week. Oh, let's go play in the Pro Bowl. No, they don't want to play in no Pro Bowl. And I think the team that loses, and they don't want to play in the Pro Bowl because they're upset, they're pissed. So I don't really, if I was a player, Tom, again, either side, if I win the Super Bowl, I'm ready to go celebrate at Disney. I'm ready to take a trip to Cancun and celebrate, right? And after we win, if we lose, I don't want to see the Pro Bowl. I don't even want to see football. I need a week off because of what we lost. So,
but you know what? Like I said before, the players should do it because it's for the fans. By them saying, like you said, I don't want to do the Pro Bowl. That's, I ain't doing that. That's a reflection telling the fans like, we really don't care about you. Not that it matters, because football's a monster. Football could play with anybody and it'll work. So, I mean, we'll just watch football no matter what, right?
Yeah.
So I just think that's a reflection on the players by them saying, you know what, no, I'm not going to do it. I got a hamstring pull.
Sports, they care about the fans the least,
honestly. Right? And they're the most popular.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm hearing an echo, Chris. I think you might still have an echo in the background, so you might want to change whatever, because the echo's coming from, I think, your box. Because I noticed when I took you off mute, we're getting an echo here. So if you want to, I'm going to unmute you and see if that's the issue. But we'll come back to that here for sure. Obviously, great stuff here. But we are on Sportswire Radio, and we are getting you ready here for the Super Bowl, the big game coming up here this Sunday with four of my guys, Joseph Bostrom here. Joseph, obviously, big fan of us here, and also analyst here from time to time. He was in our picks, and we're going to get to that in a second because the Brute Force has that on the screen. Also, Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show, Chris Bizet of the Liftoff Jets, and also the Talking Rivals. We have the Liftoff Jets we're going to play this week, and Talking Rivals has been in the rotation now the past couple of days, and we're also joined by the head coach of the Plainview JFK Hawks boys JV team. That is the Brute Force Brad Weiss, also 26th now all-time in SJLI Golden Eagles men's basketball history and rebounds. Also, he is with the Level Up Basketball Organization, Long Island Nets, and if there's still a thing, the LI Brew Crew. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, and if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, you can give us a like anytime on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. YouTube, are subscribed to our page at Sportswire Radio, well over 100 subscribers now. Also, you can catch all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player, where 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, we play content from all over the world, whether it's music, talk, sports, you name it. We also stream our shows here live, so if you don't want to see our mugshots, you can only listen to the audio only here. But we are speaking all things related here to the world of the NFL and more. But obviously, gentlemen, we're going to the big game. But the Brute Force here first, as I get to put my headphones on, tell us where we are in the standings. Tell us who's in first and who has a shot and everything else in between.
Absolutely. Well, let me start with this, all right, because I got to make this, I got to say this right now. Where is John Gonzalez? All right, where is he? Where is he? Is he hiding somewhere? Is he nervous? Right? Is he worried that Chris is going to win? He's not going to get the pick roll. Like, what is he doing? Like, he's normally here. We all know he's got an opinion on the Pro Bowl. And he's got an opinion. He's got an opinion. Where the heck is he? So that's my first thing. Where's John Gonzalez? But if you want to find out where he is on the standings, I'll tell you right now. All right, he's tied, all right, with Chris, all right, who we made it clear last week who he was picking and dared John Gonzalez to go the other way. Now, we got to see if John Gonzalez is actually going to do it. But ultimately, it comes down to those two, with Big Fink and Justin also in the mix to get a chance.
They're alive. They're one game back. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how Anthony Finkel plays.
Unfortunately, Joey Bostrom, for me, you, and Tom, we basically just we see what happens.
And a bonus, by the way, I just want to announce, because they gave us their picks. Randy Dillon is picking the Kansas City Chiefs. Rob Maraska, who was on with us before you guys came on, said he's picking the Eagles, though he wanted to say he was rooting for the Chiefs, because Rob famously is a Jersey guy, and he kind of clashes with the Eagles, but he wanted to point out, though, that he was rooting for the Chiefs, but he's picking the Eagles. But obviously they're not in the standings, but that's the bonus for those that are listening and watching here. But obviously we'll have to see what Justin and obviously Anthony Finkel do, because they're a game back, so they, if different scenarios work out, could still be alive. Now, I mean, the Brute Force, this could actually still be a four-way tie somehow, mathematically, I guess, right? Could it still be a four-way tie?
Yeah, it could be. It very much could be. So we'll see. But again, let me repeat what I said at the beginning. Where is John Gonzalez?
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to get to the people who are eliminated first. So we'll go to Joey, you, and then we'll go to the people that are on the stream who are still alive, and then we'll see what Gonzalez and Finkel wind up picking. Obviously, Finkel, I'm sure, on his napkin is going eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I'm sure he and Ra are somewhere, and they're probably putting up an ATM machine, and while they're putting up the machine, they're like, boy, what's going to give us more ATM business, the Eagles or the Chiefs? Now, I'm only goofing on the last part, but Joey Bostrom, obviously, I'm going to go with you first, because unfortunately, you you were eliminated here, and obviously you're with us. So Philadelphia Eagles and Kansas City Chiefs, and I believe I have it here. The Eagles are 1.5-point favorites. 51 is the over/under, and we can obviously talk about some of the keys here and what you think on both teams. But what's your impressions here before we pull up the comment of somebody that the bat signal has been turned on for? So
the brute force, man. He called him. Boom, shows right up. I think 2 weeks ago, Philly's defense was better than I thought. The way they manhandled San Francisco. Now I know that San Francisco was playing with their backup quarterback, but still, they looked really good. Kansas City, it showed me a lot of guts the other 2 weeks ago against Cincinnati. Mahomes is 100% now. He's been there. He has that experience. It's going to be close. But I think Philly's good. I think they're like one more year away. I mean, I didn't expect them to even be here to this point. But they are very good. Defensively, they're very talented. Jalen Hurts is an absolute
some might have said he might have got a lot more MVP consideration if he wasn't injured. That's obviously a big part to the conversation here.
But I think Mahomes' experience and Andy Reid, the guys have been there before. They've won a Super Bowl. They've lost a Super Bowl. I'm going 30-27 on that kind of score, Kansas City. It's going to be very, very close and very, very entertaining. But Kansas City is going to pull it out in the end. But
well, let's hope it's an entertaining game, and these teams are, by the way, a lot more similar than you think. They've won the same amount of games, they've scored the same exact amount of points, and coaches in some ways could be very similar. But I do want to pull him up because he is here. He hasn't given us who he's picking yet. That is John Gonzalez, and John, big plug because he is the man that runs the Sports Authorities Group, and the Sports Authorities Group, of course, most of us are members for, and you should be too, on Facebook at the Sports Authorities. I think close to 4,000 members, right around that number, are a big part of the group, and a lot of different shows post their content, but we're lucky to have John here with us. And John says here, I was just thinking of the NFL picks show. Here during the season, Brute reminded me of that Chinese balloon full of hot hair and got shot down 61-28. What's the six? Oh, right. Yes, last week's game. Correct. Last week's game. Yeah, I was just thinking that's what he's referring to. That was clever. Clever pick there by John Gonzalez. That was clever. Got to give him the basketball score.
He just brought up a Chinese balloon full of hot air. I mean, what is this guy doing right now? What is he doing? But
well, I mean, look, I don't even want to say, right?
I don't even know what to say to that comment. Really?
Well, what I would want to say is maybe since Anthony Finkel is back with us, maybe he and Anthony Finkel are kind of doing their own version of Cheech and Chong.
Behind the scenes, I don't know.
Well, one of them's the type. I don't know Gonzalez. If enough, he would certainly be the buddy. But I do want to now bring you up the Brute Force because you're 7-5 also, so you're eliminated. So that means I got to go to you now. Now the Brute Force, Brad, I really don't know. I really can't say. Well, do you want to go with this team and that team? Because there are a lot of similarities with these teams. Obviously, Eagles had a great defense, but the Chiefs quietly had 55 sacks in their own right. They were second in the league in sacks behind the Eagles. Chris Jones had a great year, and the Eagles obviously have their fearsome foursome. And I mean, obviously, it's a matchup with a lot of similarities. Owners, I think, are similar in some ways. Obviously, both these owners are two of the top owners in the league. Jeffrey Lurie, 17 trips the Eagles have had in the postseason since he took over the team. Clark Hunt now 5 championship games in a row and 3 Super Bowls since he took over from his father. The Chiefs have become a model franchise. And, I mean, obviously a lot to decipher here, the Brute Force. Maybe you are playing for something because maybe you want to finish 8-5. 8-5 is always better than 7-6. And you are a competitor no matter what you might say. So, I mean, Eagles, Chiefs. Eagles 1.5-point favorite. 51 is the over-under. And what do you think?
We got to do it one more time. So let's just bring it up. All right, one last time. All right, even though we all know, okay, everybody's going to get at me. Oh, Brad, it's the Super Bowl. There's no upset here. Well, let me make it clear for the last time this season. All right, I picked the team, all right, based on who's favored and who's not. All right, and so the Chiefs are not favored. That's why they're getting this upset. All right, and listen, whenever you put Patrick Mahomes in this situation, oh boy, what a scary thought. All right, what a scary thought. But let me, Tom, because you said you can't persuade me. All right, I am going to try to persuade John Gonzalez on why he should pick the Chiefs. All right, you know what? Because I'm going to try to give him an education lesson. All right, because he should listen to me. Now, listen, when it comes to the Chiefs, all right, we all know Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, okay? And I'm going to make it very clear, all right? The Eagles are clearly the better team, all right? They're the better team all around. They have a better complete defense and a better complete offense, all right? So I'm not going to go out on a limb and just say, oh, the Chiefs are much better than them. No, they're not, okay? I think the Eagles are a better team. But I'm not going to go against the brilliance of Andy Reid, and I'm not going to go against the brilliance and the magnificent performance which we're going to see from Patrick Mahomes. I just got a feeling this guy, there's no way that Patrick Mahomes wants to go 1-2 in the Super Bowl. All right, he's going to want to go 2-1. This is a big legacy game for this guy, okay? And then we all know about the ankle injury. He kind of shut that down in the last game. He's obviously feeling better. The one thing about this extra week, Thomas, it gave Patrick Mahomes more time to rehab and get back.
Joey Bosham said that's what Joey said.
So I think, yep, he's 100% right. I think that's going to help Mahomes here. And I just think, again, you mentioned Chris Jones. He's no slouch. He's been doing really well.
I think he made the play of the game at the end of the Bengals game. He sacked Joe Burrow. I think that gave the Chiefs a big opportunity.
I think he's going to, apply pressure. I know that the Eagles got a good offensive line. I know that the Eagles also, obviously, the leader in sacks for the season. They're going to get to Mahomes a little bit as well. I just think Mahomes is going to make plays. This is going to be a high-scoring game. And I think that if it is a high-scoring game, I think that's good for the Chiefs. I think that that's what they want, ultimately, to get it high-scoring and for Mahomes to continue to get repetitions and get rhythm. And then if he does and it comes down to a close game, who comes up in the clutch and who's been in this situation before, which is, again, Mahomes and Andy Reid, who knows how to do this. I know that Andy Reid has his up and downs in the playoffs, but he has been a champion before, and I just think he's going to get it done against his former team. But it's going to be a really good game. Let's just put it that way. The game, I got the Chiefs winning, and I think it's going to be by like a field goal. I think it's going to be close, going to come down to the end. I'll say, if I had to put it on right now, I'll say 35-32, the Chiefs win.
Wow. Okay. All right. You know what? There's some interesting points there. I pray that it's a good game, and certainly these two teams are very similarly matched up. And I agree with you on the Mahomes legacy part. I do think that there's a lot on the line, actually, for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes' legacy. So I think both of them. But before I get to Justin, who's the first involved in this four-way scenario of those who are alive here and can kind of come up with at least a share of the postseason leaderboard here in the NFL Sportswire radio picks here. John Gonzalez wants to say, Brute is educating me on what? Badminton. Now, do you play badminton, the Brute Force Skywise? You don't strike me as a badminton player.
First of all, I think I know why John said this, because he wanted to make sure he got the first three letters in, bad, all right, because he wanted to reference my picks for the season, all right? No, I don't play badminton, all right? No, I don't play, all right? So I don't know what John's talking about. He's trying to bust my chops. It's all right, John. Let's see how smart you are, whether you want to be in a tie with Chris or you want to listen to my advice.
Well, we'll find out. I will say one thing. One of our listeners actually does play badminton, the guy Daniel Slavin, who I think Anthony Finkel does know or has run cross paths with, I think, in the Brooklyn political world. He probably would remember him by face, but that's here nor there. John also wants to say to you, the Brute Force, the Herrick's high school basketball coach just called me. He is looking for the Brute. Now, is that true?
No.
Okay. All right.
No, listen. He was very depressed after that loss. He might not be the coach next year, so I'll say that.
Wow.
I'm not going to.
The coach killer now.
I am not going to wish. I'm the last person to not want to wish people anything or wish them ill will, so I'm going to certainly plead the fifth on that, because I've had my own issues off the microphone this week, so I'll certainly plead the fifth on that. But John Gonzalez also wants to say, I agree with Joey, like the old formats of the All-Star games, MLB is the best All-Star game. Always.
I knew this guy had an opinion. You see that he's hiding behind closed doors. He finally brought the opinion out. He's watching.
Okay, he's still running his numbers to see, who to pick.
Well, let's get to the first of the four people that are still mathematically alive here, at least obtaining a share of the NFL Sportswire Radio NFL Picks Leaderboard. That is Justin Gianelli. And Justin, you're obviously right there, 8-4, still very much alive here in things. And Eagles and Chiefs, again, two teams, a lot going on. You got Kelsey versus Kelsey. You've got Sirianni and Reed, Hunt versus Laurie, and you've got Spags lurking in the background for the Chiefs. Could win another Super Bowl. And defenses we spoke about. Offenses, I think the Chiefs have got some exciting rookies. We spoke a little bit about Isaiah Pacheco a couple different times, and certainly other things as well. We could talk about a guy named Mahomes versus obviously Philadelphia's quarterback. Obviously you've got a lot in the line here. You've got some decisions, I know. But, what do you think here is obviously you're very much alive, and this is a decision because you're the first one up now. You're the first one up here of the four that have a chance. So, obviously your pick's going to be the one that could sway some people to go one way or another. So, Eagles, Chiefs, Eagles 1.5-point favorites, 51 is the over-under. Tell us what you think.
Well, I'm going to start by prefacing that by the end of my discussion for the game, one of these jerseys are going on. I have a Philadelphia Eagles jersey.
Got the Eagle jersey.
Or
Nice.
is it going to be a Patrick
Justin.
Mahomes jersey?
He's prepared.
Which one is going to be the one?
I like the suspense. Very good.
I like it.
I'm going to start by saying that this is going to be one of the better Super Bowls we've seen in recent memory. These are two tremendous football teams. And, to no one's surprise, really, the NFL postseason was a lot of chalk this year. A lot of favorites winning, the 2 1 seeds in the Super Bowl, something we don't really see that often, actually. Both teams with the bye won their divisional round. They won through the conference. And, now here we are. And, Brad's 100% right about this being a legacy game for Patrick Mahomes. But also, this is an opportunity for some extra cash for Jalen Hurts. If you hear what Jeffrey Lurie's been saying and what Howie Roseman's been saying about Jalen Hurts, he's in line for a massive contract. And that team is absolutely loaded. The Philadelphia Eagles might have one of the best rosters we've seen in recent memory. The only place that they have a disadvantage is at the quarterback. And Patrick Mahomes will always have the advantage over whoever he's facing at the quarterback position. And that ankle is almost like an afterthought at this point. It's barely been the talk of the week. He looked like he moved around okay during the AFC Championship game. And I love the grittiness and the toughness of the Kansas City Chiefs, overcoming their own demons, if you will, because they had struggled to beat Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Patrick Mahomes was 0-3 against the Bengals while Burrow was the quarterback. So I think there's a different attitude with the Kansas City Chiefs. They're looking at this like, we can't have a repeat of what happened against Tampa Bay 2 years ago. And how will that carry over to the game? And yes, it's going to be challenging. That Philadelphia defensive line is as good as we've seen. 80 plus sacks this year. They tormented whoever was back there, whether it was Brock Purdy, Josh Johnson, or Brock Purdy, handing the ball off. They tormented this 49er offense. They tormented the Giants. Daniel Jones had no chance in that game. And, Kansas City played more battle-tested games. The Jacksonville game was not easy. The Cincinnati game came down to the wire. And I think that's what's going to be the difference here. Philadelphia's had a little bit too easy of a road. They've really not faced a lot of adversity this year. The only small little adversity they faced was
Hurts getting injured.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts getting injured, missing a couple of weeks. They lost a couple of games, kind of knocked them off their feet, and kind of almost made them wobbly enough where they almost lost a 1 seed. So I'm super excited for this game. I think it's going to be a real close battle, but only one can come out on top. And that answer.
There you go.
Going today.
Wow.
The
Gotta
Kansas
go
City
for it,
Chiefs
man.
are going to
Like
win
it.
Super Bowl 57, and you will be hearing the Tomahawk Chop.
Oh boy. Oh, I gotta set mine up then. Hold on.
After the ad, we will get the Tomahawk Chop.
Do you want me to play that for you on Sportswire Radio?
I will go 3, 2, 1.
Okay, you got it.
The Kansas City Chiefs will win Super Bowl 57, 31-28.
Oh, very impressive, very clever. One of the more clever, I would say, non-professional wrestler segments I've seen here in 4 years of doing this. So I give you a lot of credit. Anthony Finkel seems to agree. Obviously, he has his pick in, but I'll leave it till he and Gonzalez go last. So I'm going to go from the second now of the 4 people who are still very much alive here in the postseason picks. I know, Chris, you've pretty much kind of said who you're going to pick anyway, but I still, for a mere formality, have to ask you, with the Philadelphia Eagles still being your team and the Kansas City Chiefs, I still have to ask you, Eagles, Chiefs. Eagles could win their franchise's second Super Bowl. Chiefs could win their third Super Bowl, the second in 4 years. But for those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio, I mean, you're obviously very much alive here. You're tied with John Gonzalez, so you're going to really be in the catbird seat potentially, depending on how this all plays out. So, I mean, I'd like to see where you're going to pick here in this game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about it, the last 2 weeks, obviously. Andy Reid's record after a bye in the playoffs and regular season is 28-4. I think that's ridiculous how good that is, right? Now, the bad side of that, 2 of those losses have come in the Super Bowl, right?
Patriots and the Buccaneers, yep.
Right. So he's not – okay. In the big games, and I've seen it in Philly, he lost, I think, 4 championship games, right? NFC championship games.
1 and 4 championship games. Only the 04 team won.
Yeah, I've seen him lose these big games, right? A lot, being a Philly fan as well. So, but he's still – listen, you give this guy an extra week to prepare. Obviously, the coaching, I think, there's the advantage too. Like Justin said, the Eagles got the advantage across the board, except for quarterback. Quarterback, obviously, it's Mahomes. Mahomes he's in a league of his own, so he's obviously got the advantage there. But I think coaching too. You got to give it to Andy Reid, because then you got Spagnuolo, who's the guy that beat the Patriots, that shut down.
It was a big write-up today.
Right?
Yep, it was a big write-up today in the Staten Island Advance about how he could be the X factor. That was what they were writing here in the Staten Island Advance.
If anybody could shut down this offense, it's going to be him. So I could see that happening. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game, right? Because I think both teams defensively are really good. I think the Eagles are still the better team. I still think the Eagles are going to win, but I think it's going to be a lower-scoring game. I don't think it's going to be high-scoring. I think maybe I was thinking more to maybe like a 24-13 game.
Okay, so you're very much of the mind of an under then, because a lot of these guys are telling us 32.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
35, and
I think, and for me, I think if the Chiefs, if they don't start off well, if they're playing from behind from the very beginning, like San Fran did, and like Dallas did, the Giants did these last 2 weeks, I don't think they're gonna. I do not see them coming back and winning this game. So I think it's important for them to either A, keep it close, or B, take an early lead, because then they could play their game, right? They don't have to be throwing the ball, and if they're down by 10 or something like that. Once they're forced into that, then I think the Eagles are just gonna just tee off, and they're just gonna go after Mahomes, and I think eventually that defensive line is gonna wear down that offensive line. And the Eagles, on the other hand, are just gonna run the ball, and they're just gonna wear down their defensive line with their offensive line. So that's why I see it close game, not a low-scoring game, but I see it 24-13 like that, maybe.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm very curious on what you and Sharman formally say on the Liftoff Jet Show, which we'll play starting tomorrow. Go ahead, jump in.
Real quick. I think what Chris said is actually true on the opposite, because I think the Chiefs are okay with playing a helter-skelter game. I think the Eagles need to play a little more controlled. I think if they fall behind, I think that's when they get into a little bit of trouble. I think Mahomes is going to be able to find quick plays, and I think I would feel like I could confidently say if the Eagles were up 21-3, I don't feel comfortable the Eagles are winning that game because of Mahomes' ability. If the Eagles go on 21-3, I think they're in dangerous waters.
Okay, very interesting. I do want to get to a couple of comments before I get to the other two guys in this four-way share here. First,
let's see if John listen.
Well, he's not picked yet, but what he does want to say is that Brood promised me a Plainview JFK Hawks T-shirt. Just reminder to make it a triple extra large. Anthony Finkel wants to clip that. Well, we'll see. I'm actually live before the Super Bowl, so I'm going to try my best, but I can't promise anything. Anthony Finkel, though, because he's the third of the four players here that are still alive in this NFL Sportswire. Yep, and he has picked the Philadelphia Eagles. So I guess he wrote down on his napkin he was going with the Eagles, and he figured that maybe it looked better on the napkin, maybe it looked better on the writing, and eeny, meeny, miny, mo worked out better for him. So he is going with the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, well, we'll find out, I guess, right? But we're waiting here, obviously, with bated breath on what John Gonzalez has picked and what he is about to say. Obviously, Mr. Gonzalez is the last of the four players. I'll go last afterwards. I'll also have an announcement related to a next season's pick, which I'd like to share, which will be a clue for next week's show. So I'd like to wait before I do that because, well, I'm the guy that has the microphone, right? So that's the
I guess, like Chris said, he's still calculating the numbers. He's still doing advanced research.
Well, before we get to Gonzalez, and then I actually want to ask you guys one more thing on football, which is the Hall of Fame, because Locals had a bunch of guys announced, and I'll get you guys' thoughts on that. But I mean, do you think that Gonzalez, for the first time, for anybody here, is feeling pressure? He's feeling nervous. I mean, you think so? Because I think he's been pretty confident this year. I mean, he's been pretty confident.
I'm going to say this: he's sweating right now. He's sweating. His armpits are sweaty. Yeah, his armpits are sweaty. His forehead is sweaty. He's sweating. He's sweating right now. He's worried. He's worried.
Well, listen, that reminds me. I was involved in a New York State Senate election that was decided by 13 votes. I can tell you that was really sweating. I don't know if Mr. Gonzalez is sweating that much, but it was very warm here today in New York, thank God. But Mr. Gonzalez, after careful deliberation, has put in his pick, and here it is. For those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio and over on the Sports Authorities group on Facebook, he says, well, I've got the Eagles. Tough choice.
Oh, okay.
All right, so let's recap.
Which means I'm alive for a potential three-way tie.
All right, so let's recap here before I make the pick. We have Anthony Finkel going with the Eagles, the napkin Anthony Finkel with the Eagles. We have John Gonzalez with the Philadelphia Eagles, Chris Pizzea also with the Philadelphia Eagles, and Justin Gianelli of the three that's going with the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is interesting here. So I guess we did have some variety. We do have some differences. So obviously, look, if the Chiefs win, we will get that four-way. I guess that four. Well, actually, no. Anthony Finkel would be
three-way tie. Anthony picked the Eagles.
Right. I was about to say. So we'll get that three-way tie. So we'll have Gonzalez.
See, Finkel should pick the Chiefs.
No, he already picked. His napkin.
It's locked in. It's locked in. That's it.
No, his napkin was used. You can't use another napkin. So you're out. Listen, you picked the Eagles. You're done. John Gonzalez, before I pick, says, I've never sweated. I've had ice water in my veins.
What is he, D'Angelo Russell, really?
We're gonna get to him. But I'd like to make my pick because obviously
listen, Tommy, I'll say this before you make your pick. Let's put some pressure on you. You don't want to come in last, all right? You don't want to come in last.
That doesn't bother me one bit because I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs, and I was well prepared for this, and I have several reasons why as I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs. The first reason, which I kind of touched upon about 10 minutes ago, I think Chris Jones is going to be an X factor here. 15.5 sacks. I don't think he got enough credit. I think he made a big play, and I think if you saw his reactions toward the end of that game after the Burrow sack, I think he's going to be important. I think Kelsey versus Kelsey. I think that big brother's going to have, little brother, I should say. I think big brother offensively is going to have a big game. I think he's going to be motivated. I think the 2 weeks, you talk about Mahomes being healthy for the 2 extra weeks. Remember, Kelsey was questionable during the championship game. Give him two weeks, and I think that he's going to be a big factor in this matchup.
Also, too, you know who else got to rest up? Kadarius Toney, after leaving early in the championship.
My next one here.
He's going to be good to go for this game.
And before I further, John Gonzalez says, nice guys finish last. No, John, if you would have saw me in Duffy's 4 or 5 days ago, I wasn't so much of a nice guy. So you might want to check that back because basically I'm not going back there anytime soon for legitimate reasons. But look, the Chiefs for me are going to win this game because I think right now, first of all, somebody else brought up legacy, which I think was Justin. Justin brought up the legacy issue of Patrick Mahomes. I think Brute Force also mentioned it. Okay, all right, so you mentioned it first, the Brute Force, but I knew one of you at least mentioned it. But I think that right now for Mahomes, this is a big moment for him because he loses this game, he goes to 1-2. Now you start looking at it. Well, is this the guy to be close to Brady? Is this the guy we're going to put in the all-time stratosphere? Or do we put him more in a Peyton Manning category where he's a great, but he's not in that Tom Brady, that Joe Montana category, that other quarterbacks that we mentioned, Terry Bradshaw, 4 Super Bowls. So I think this is kind of that moment because 5 championship games in a row. How many more times do you get to the mountain? Listen, I mean, Jim Kelly had 4 straight Super Bowls, never got back.
You got to remember, and you got to remember how tough the AFC is going to be for years to come with Josh Allen, with Joe Burrow, with Justin Herbert. Even with Trevor Lawrence on an up-and-coming Jaguars team that I think under Doug Peterson are going to be good for years to come.
I would even say Kenny Pickett with Pittsburgh. I think that not that far behind.
God, here we go.
Well, the problem with them is they're in a tough.
Why not?
They're in a little bit of a tough. The problem is they're in a little bit of a tough division. Depending on what happens with Lamar Jackson, they could catapult to being the number 2 team behind the Bengals. But
I think they're a contender.
But if
you
you think about
why not?
You really have to bring up the Steelers?
They played.
Listen, I was actually about to bring up the Jets. Don't forget about them. What about they get a quarterback?
We'll see what happens.
That's a big if.
But if
big
you think
if
about
right
it real
now.
quick
That's a
from
huge
Patrick
if, right.
Mahomes'
You're right.
standpoint, if he loses the Super Bowl, that's 2 Super Bowl losses and also 2 conference championship losses. And he went to 5
And he lost them at home.
5 straight AFC
championship
games
at
and
home.
1 Super Bowl. That's not good.
And listen, the loss,
to win.
and not for nothing, the loss that he had against the Bucs a couple years ago in the Super Bowl, everybody had foregone conclusion the Chiefs. So I know this one's a little bit more of an even matchup.
And they got destroyed in that game. Their offensive line took a beating, and Mahomes ran about 20 miles and gained nothing. Because he was running all over the place.
Another point as to why I'm going with Kansas City, and Chris brought up the fact about Andy Reid in 28-4. Well, I agree about after buys 28-4, but I also think that I think his legacy is on the line too because yes, he's got the 1 win, but if he loses this game, his record in championship games, as Chris pointed out, ain't that great either. I mean, what's he 4-6 in championship games? If he loses this one, what would this make him? 1-3 in Super Bowls?
He's 3-2 with the Chiefs.
3-2, 1-4 with the Eagles. So that's 4-6. He was 0-1 for a Super Bowl with the Eagles.
Yep.
If he loses this, it's 1-2 with Kansas City. So he's 1-3 in Super Bowls. I think that his legacy is on the line too. Listen, he's going to Canton. We talked about the stats.
So is there more pressure on the Chiefs, you think, than the Eagles?
I think so because
that I'll 100% agree with you because the Eagles are. I hate to say anybody's playing with house money in the Super Bowl, especially the team with the number 1 seed in the NFC. But it's almost like the Eagles don't know any better. You got a second-year coach with Nick Sirianni. You have a third-year quarterback in Jalen Hurts. You could kind of argue that these guys don't know any better. Yeah, Jason Kelsey was there.
Fletcher Cox, Spencer Graham.
A few of the Eagles are still
there's two holdovers left. And there's 2 holdovers from the Reed era. It's Cox and Graham.
Right. And there's a couple guys on the roster who were on that 17 team that won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. So
8 altogether.
So you could argue that most of these players don't know any better, Well, if you're the Chiefs, most of these guys have been through the wars. If not all 5 years, at least 3 of these 5 years.
I hate to say this, the Kansas City Chiefs, if
There is
they
one
don't
person
win,
in K-State.
I hate to say this, and I'm sure a guy like Joey Bosham would appreciate this also. I feel like if the Kansas City Chiefs don't win, they go into Atlanta Braves category. They go into that territory of the Atlanta Braves. They
Fair.
would listen. They had all those appearances in the World Series.
I don't know if you could say. Listen, Mahomes is what? This is his 5th year or 6th year?
5th year as a starter, 6th overall.
6th overall.
All right, so he's still got another 10 years to go.
But there's no guarantee you get back, though.
I know, but I'm not. But there's no guarantee.
Like I said, mentioned how tough the AFC is.
Yeah,
I get to the championship game.
Totally get that. I totally get that, but he's still who he is, right? And
of course,
I think he'll be back. So I think it's too early to say that about him. About Reed, yeah, Reed is a guy that when you add up all the losses in the championship games and in the Super Bowls, yeah, this is a big one. I think it's bigger for him than it is for Mahomes because Mahomes still has.
Well, logistically speaking, I mean, listen, Reed has coached 23 years in the league as a head coach. I mean, he's got I don't know how many more years, but I do think that there's a lot of pressure here. I mean, because listen, this Chiefs team, they had 5 championship games in a row. That 5 of them were at home. It's okay, so they win 3 of them. Okay, I give them that. But to me, if they don't come away with the Super Bowl and it's only 1 Super Bowl, that's to me territory.
That's a disappointment. That's an
absolutely.
Right. It's an absolute disappointment.
The Braves are a great comp.
Because the Braves, where did they go to? 5 World Series in 9 years and only came away with the 1 World Series?
Right, and 14 straight division titles. So they're in the playoffs every year.
And only 1 championship.
95.
Only 1.
That's it. 1995.
And that's it. You win 1. So the Chiefs, 5 years in a row. They had 5 championship games in a row at home. And if they don't win Sunday, only come away. And listen, you mentioned Chris with Andy Reid, right? That 4 years in a row that he had a championship game. He had 4 years in a row and only won the 1 championship game with the Eagles. And he didn't win the Super Bowl. And he got to the championship game 1 more time with the Eagles. So that means that's it. His run, it could have been what if. I mean, he had some good Eagles teams. I mean, there was some good teams. They only came away with that 1 conference championship.
And you know what? To add to, all right, if the Chiefs got all the pressure, the Eagles are actually playing with a chip on their shoulder because, like Justin said, and like you said, it's what's his name? Hurts is not getting, the so-called respect. He's, he keeps on hearing, well, he's not a good passer. He's not this. He's not that. He keeps on hearing that. And now he's like, well, what else do I have to do? So he feels like he has to prove himself time and time again. Sirianni, who's the one that said it? He's the guy from the Giants, right?
Julian Love. He said he got a free ride.
He's got a free ride. How is that possible? How many teams that we say, oh, they got a great team on paper, they're loaded, this and that, and they don't even make the playoffs, or they get knocked out early. So I mean, all these guys are feeling like they're getting no respect whatsoever. Sirianni didn't even get any Coach of the Year votes. He wasn't even in the top 3. Not that I thought he deserved it. Trust me, I'm not saying he did. Dable,
the roster was too loaded,
deserved it. But still, I mean, I think they're playing total opposite. They're playing with a chip on their shoulder because they're like, what else?
But you know what? You might be right because now we saw this scenario with the 49ers, right? Everybody was like, I'm going with the 49ers. Now, obviously, listen, Purdy gets hurt, Johnson gets hurt, but you know what? Eagles had the chip on their shoulder, and you know what? They played a game where, listen, the 49ers, most people came on. Most of us came on here and said, I'm going with the 49ers, and I think most people like the 49ers, but you know what? Eagles blew them out. And before I get to the NFL Hall of Fame, and I want to give a shout out to Anastasia Resnia, who's also a huge Chargers fan, wanted to remind me of a Hall of Famer going in as a Charger, which we'll get to, a legendary head coach. John Gonzalez did want to say, I was back and forth with my pick till I heard the Brute Force pick the Chiefs. All right, that was a good one.
Wow.
And thank you, John, for the Kenny Pickett sentiment. Wanted to bring it up one more time for you, the Brute Force. I'm excited about Kenny Pickett. I think that the Steelers.
Real talk though. He's got a lot of the fundamentals that are going to make a good quarterback.
And I think a full season with weapons.
He has a lot of things that he still needs to work on developmentally. But listen, in the next 2 to 3 years, he's going to be good.
Well,
Trust me on this.
what? We're at the Super Bowl. This is not Kenny Pickett time, all right? You want to talk about him in the regular season? All right, that's fine. We're at the Super Bowl. Ain't nobody time to talk about no Kenny Pickett.
The man who's tied for first place and won the regular season picks brought him up, so I'm gonna definitely bring him up. But
why are you bringing him now?
So Brad,
So
Brad, what are you gonna do next year when we're talking about Kenny Pickett leading the Steelers to his first Super Bowl?
What? They ain't going to no Super Bowl. I'll say it right now. They ain't going to no Super Bowl. Stop it. I'll even say this. The Detroit Lions will get closer again to the Super Bowl next year. I'll say that. They'll get closer.
Well,
to be fair,
Joey Boström.
Easier road in the NFC.
One more they do. That's why.
Yeah, Joey Boström.
I think Detroit's got a chance to win the playoff game. I'll say that.
Yes, I agree. What do you got, Joey Boström?
I think Kansas City needs to win because there's no guarantee they're going to get back next year because the AFC is so Burrow, Herbert, even Lawrence, like somebody mentioned. So there's no guarantee for Mahomes either.
Yeah, I think. Listen, I think the AFC it's a much tougher road. I mean, the AFC's become like the Western Conference in the NBA. I mean, look again. If you've been to 5 straight championship games, if you don't win Sunday, you have won one Super Bowl. Listen, Chris, you might be right. Maybe they get back, but there's no guarantee. So the Chiefs, if let's say they don't win Sunday, and they don't get back to a championship game or a Super Bowl, history is not going to look back on them very kindly. It's a simple fact. They're going to look at them similar to, the Utah Jazz in the 90s, the New York Knicks, the Atlanta Braves. I mean, the Astros, up until winning the World Series this year, teams that had a long stretch, a long run of dominance, but only won one championship or didn't win. The Buffalo Bills, another example. I mean, there's going to be teams you look at. The Predators you could look at in the NHL had a long run, didn't really do anything with it. I mean, there's a number of teams, unfortunately, if they don't win and they don't get back, history is going to eventually judge the Chiefs. Eventually, they're going to be judged, right? So if they don't win Sunday and they don't get back, unfortunately, they're going to be judged in the same category as some of those teams that I mentioned here. But I did want to ask you guys' opinions here. Obviously, the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame was announced for 2023. I heard Anthony Finkel talking about it here. And before I get to John Gonzalez's comment about the March Madness, I did want to ask you guys some general impressions. Obviously, locally, we see a few Hall of Famers. Obviously, Joe Klecko, former legendary Jet Darrelle Revis, who I know Chris is obviously wearing his jersey for. Also saw here for our friend Anastasia Riznia, Don Coryell, Air Coryell, inducted into the Hall of Fame. Also, Rondé Barber, which is Tiki Barber's twin brother, is also inducted. So, for you guys, I'll go with Joey first, and I'll work my way around the room. Pro Football Hall of Fame 23. Give me your thoughts and impressions.
I mean, Klecko and Revis, absolutely deserving. I mean, I know Revis didn't play a long career, but for those years that he played in New York before he went to New England, nobody touched him. I mean,
yeah, he was a shutdown. He was the shutdown.
It was absolutely a pleasure to watch. I don't. Can you tell me who else was inducted? I'm sorry, because I don't remember.
Rondé Barber, Joe Klecko, Don Coryell, Chuck Howley, Zach Thomas, who a lot of us remember, Joe Thomas, another guy we most remember, and DeMarcus Ware, who obviously is another no-brainer. Yeah.
So I'll give you 2 names. DeMarcus Ware, deserving.
Absolutely.
No problem with that. Rondé Barber, I don't know. I mean, I would have to see the numbers again. How long did he play again? I know he spent his whole career with Tampa, but I don't know exactly how long he played. I don't remember.
He actually played 16 seasons, by the way. 16 seasons he played.
16. I mean, he was
Pro Bowler 5 times, by the way. 5-time Pro Bowler. I mean, pretty good numbers there.
You think I would study this stuff?
47 interceptions, led the league in interceptions, won a Super Bowl. No, I think Barber was pretty deserving.
I take.
Go ahead, Justin.
If I'm not
Jump
mistaken,
in, Justin.
Rondé Barber is the only player to have 30 or more sacks and 30 or more interceptions.
20. He had 28 career sacks.
Oh, 28.
28, just shy. Very close.
I thought I heard Tiki. I'm sorry. I thought I heard Tiki say that this morning.
Well, he might have said
on the radio.
You might have said it, but
Pro
could've
Football
said it.
Reference has him, but still, I mean, very impressive. 47 career receptions, 28 sacks, 5-time Pro Bowler. I mean, listen, he had a phenomenal career. I mean, for you, Justin, anything that strikes? Obviously, Revis for us here locally. Before I get to the Brute Force and Chris and some other comments, but I think Revis deserving. DeMarcus Ware was deserving. For Zach Thomas, if you remember him, obviously for all those Dolphin teams throughout the late
And
'90s.
you know what?
Yep.
I mean, listen. This is if you're a Jet fan, especially, you know, this is a huge day. This is a huge moment. You know, arguably the two greatest defensive players in New York Jets history are going to be enshrined in Canton this summer. And for Joe Klecko, it's long overdue. And I'm sure, Chris, you can attest to this. You haven't seen Joe Klecko play. One of the leaders of the New York Sack Exchange. Just a tremendous
Yeah, didn't
career.
he have the all-time sack record too for a little while? 20 sacks,
20
and a half sacks.
He was at 20 and a half before that record got broken. Listen, for him, long overdue. For Darrelle Revis, obviously a first ballot Hall of Famer, just speaks to the greatness, you know, in a sport where you can get away with being dominant for only a short period of time and being a first ballot Hall of Famer because of the fragility of the sport and how violent the game is and how short careers can be. And, you know, for my money, Darrelle Revis is the greatest defensive player that I watched, you know, in my time, since I didn't get a chance to see some of the guys from the 80s, like a Mark Gastineau, a Joe Klecko, Marty Lyons, you know, those guys. But it's a very, very special day if you're a Jets fan. And the rest of this class, you know, Rondé Barber was such a tremendous part of that Bucs defense with Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp, John Lynch. That was just that was just one of the best defenses.
Meat and potatoes kind of team for a little while there. Yep.
You know, DeMarcus Ware, one of the great pass rusher. You know, like I said, Zach Thomas was a pain in the you-know-what to the Jets all those years with the Dolphins. You know, Joe Thomas was a staple at left tackle.
Yep.
I think he didn't miss a snap or something. So like
I was gonna say he had
a short career though.
Yeah.
Joe Thomas, right? Maybe 9 years.
Yeah, but again, that, like I said, that's par for the course in a, you know, very violent physical sport. I see a lot of guys retire around 30, 31 years old, you know, because you worry about the long-term physical effect. You know, we've seen, you know, how it affects people, you know, and some of these other names, you know, Don Coryell. You know,
I have a few comments on him. Yep, from Anastasia, who's a Chargers fan, has a few things I'll share.
That's tremendous as well. I think everybody here is well deserving. The one name that continues to get left off, that continues to bother me, is Torrey Holt. Torrey Holt with the Rams, you know,
greatest show on turf. Yep.
Yeah, and to me in my mind, was every bit as good, if not better, than Isaac Bruce. And we saw Isaac Bruce get his day a couple years ago. I don't know. I continue to be a little bit boggled by Torrey Holt having to wait.
Yeah, I mean that's a good one. I mean, he's certainly almost 1,000 catches. I think 13,000 plus yards. Pro Bowler 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 times. I mean, won a Super Bowl. Before I get to you, the Brute Force, let me get to a bunch of different comments. Also here, John says, to all the fans out there, just stay tuned next month for March Madness. Brackets when I school the Brute Force once again. John also says, it's about time for Joe Klecko. Yeah, Joe Klecko, I always kind of thought, like, what was going on there? Air Coryell was a great offensive mind. I think Air Coryell was the guy that kind of revolutionized the modern-day pro football game. So he's kind of one of those guys that probably from the legacy standpoint should have gotten. Also, John wants to remind us of Chuck Howley, who, for you, the Brute Force, was the only Super Bowl MVP on a losing team, Super Bowl V, Brute's team, the Dallas Cowboys. And Anastasia wants to tell me that she kind of had a little bit of a family story with Don Coryell, because when she was working at a hospital, his family and former football friends would come in every day, and she got a chance to mingle with them and speak with them, because obviously she was in the hospital she was working in, and she was a huge Chargers fan. So I know she's very happy about that. But a few of the brute force, I mean, Darrelle Revis comes to mind as somebody we saw. Joe Thomas played in our era. I mean, DeMarcus Ware, definitely DeMarcus Ware. I mean, he was a no-brainer. I think everybody would agree with that one. But anything Hall of Fame-wise stands out before I move on to Chris?
Yeah, no, like you said, Tom. First of all, like everybody said, all these guys are well-deserving. Just looking at the resumes and looking at the list of guys, I mean, there's really no reason why any of these guys should be left off, and they do deserve to be here. But I was going to comment on those three guys, because those are really the three guys that I kind of got to watch. Obviously, as a kid, as a Jets fan, Darrelle Revis was one of the players to watch.
Definitely.
Always. So to see him get inducted into the Hall of Fame is pretty cool, just knowing, through my childhood, you got to watch him. Obviously, when you get called Revis Island, you literally have an island to yourself. I mean, that's something special. This guy was, like you guys said, locked down, unbelievable. Didn't matter who the best team's wide receiver was. He was shutting them down, from Randy Moss to, other guys we could discuss. I mean, he was shutting down everybody. He was terrific. So, you can, unfortunately, the Jets teams around him weren't good enough to really do anything, for a sustained period of time. Obviously, a little bit here and there, but not enough. So ultimately that sucks. But, right now we should be happy because we might have the next Darrelle Revis in Sauce Gardner. So I'm very excited about that. Joe Thomas, as you mentioned, he was a staple there, one of the best, again, short career, but did a really nice job on that offensive line. Known for his days in Cleveland, obviously. And now, actually, I got to give him credit now, doing a great job on NFL Network. Pretty good. He does a good job. I like his analysis, so I'll give him credit there as well, even though obviously we're talking about him as a player. But, listen, as an analyst, he's doing a good job as well. So props to him. And then, DeMarcus Ware was a problem.
Oh, my God. That was, this
guy, you always heard this guy's name. Another pressure by Ware, another sack. This guy was all over the field. You always heard his name. So just from that itself is the reason why. He might have
been the most feared, I think, lineman, right, in that era, right? That 7 or 8 year period where he dominated. Would that be fair to say?
Well, I could tell you one thing. Eli Manning still has nightmares about DeMarcus Ware.
That too.
A lot of quarterbacks do. So listen, this guy was a stud. Like I said, he was a no-brainer. No-brainer to be a Hall of Famer. Just had a tremendous career. And like I said, I'm not even bringing up numbers because with a guy like DeMarcus Ware, you don't even need to know numbers. You just need to know the fear factor, like Justin said, that this guy had. And that's the reason why he's a Hall of Famer. So those are really the three guys I got to watch, and all three of them were spectacular. But like I said, the resumes of the rest of the guys clearly show they should be in there. So it was a good class. Definitely better than the Baseball Hall of Fame for sure.
Oh, my God, please. We had to spend when Rob Morocco came on here. And also John Gonzalez, which is a good one. Zach Thomas, who is a very good player. Kind of just before your time, the brute force, but definitely was an important player for the Miami Dolphins for a long time and in the 90s into the middle part of the 2000s. And obviously Jet fans, unfortunately, know him very well. Obviously Zach Thomas.
One thing that's stunning.
Before I get to Chris, I got to get to Chris.
To me is how has it been that long since DeMarcus Ware last played? I feel like DeMarcus Ware played 6 years ago. I know. Yeah. You got to have that 5-6 year waiting window. I feel like he just a couple years ago. It's mind-boggling.
And he's 9th all-time in sacks, by the way, so definitely well-deserved. So there's no question that, he's right there. And before I get to you, Chris, I would also like to point out from John Gonzalez, I'd love to see my buddy Mark Gastineau get in. Besides LT, he was a feared pass rusher for the New York Sack Exchange, which we talked about with Joe Klecko.
I would love to see that too.
And DeMarcus Ware was huge with those shoulders pads. Yeah, he did. Chris, I know big day for you. Obviously, Joe Klecko, somebody you saw very well, and Darrelle Revis as well. Some other guys we certainly, I think, overlapped with. But just give me your impressions for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I remember very little of Klecko because I was very young when I was watching him. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, all these guys are well deserving. I remember just that day I was talking to somebody on Twitter about Ken Riley, and I'm like, why isn't he in by now? I mean, he was like, I think 4th or 5th in career interceptions. I'm like, why is a guy like that not in? But he finally got in his years. I don't think he was ever the best corner, but he was probably like that next level, probably 3rd or 4th best in the league every year instead of the best. So he finally got in. So that was good for him. But a guy like Revis, I mean, I'm happy he got in first ballot too. I think there was no doubt about that. This is a guy, just out of people that I've seen over the last 40 years or whatever. I mean, just him and Deion Sanders are the only 2 guys I've seen completely shut down the best receivers on that team. I mean, just completely shut them down. I've never seen, there's no other corner that has done it that good like those 2 guys. It's ridiculous how well I mean, you could tell like offenses would just like stay away from a guy like Revis. They wouldn't even bother throwing to him, and like Sanders, the same thing. You don't even want to throw to him because you make a mistake, he's going to make a pick, and there was a good chance he was going to return it too. So that's what made these guys so good. They they changed how the offenses would, plan against, the Jets or whatever team they were on. So just an amazing players. I think I'm looking forward to next year because you got guys like Antonio Gates and Julius Peppers that are going to be on for the first time. And those guys, to me, are first ballot. I don't know if they're going to get in on first ballot, but I think they should.
Gates will, 100%.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of guys that are not on there now that you look at. You like the finalists for the Hall of Fame.
Torrey Holt was a good one because I remember him for a long period of time. I mean, he was a great receiver. I mean, you look at the stats, almost 1,000 catches. You think that
he's right
guy
there.
That's in.
But then you look at a guy like Reggie Wayne. He's just he should be going in. So wide receiver is tough because now, especially now, the last 10, 15 years, these guys are getting over 100 a season like easily. And now you got the extra game. The offense is all about passing now. So those numbers.
Yeah, even guys like Sterling Sharp and Herman Moore, 25 years ago get blown out of the water now because, like you bring it up, Reggie Wayne and Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, all these different receivers that had, Randy Moss had these big numbers.
And Reggie Wayne's in that same category as Holt because he played with a Hall of Fame receiver as well. Marvin Harrison's in the Hall of Fame too, as well as Isaac Bruce. And it kind of feels like those 2 guys are getting lost when they both had tremendous careers. I mean, I could make the same argument that I was making before about Torrey Holt as I could with Reggie Wayne. 1,070 catches, 82 touchdowns, 14 yards receiving. I don't know what else you wanted him to do. Yeah, to me, I could say I looked at Torrey Holt, Reggie Wayne, and say they're Hall of Famers. And the fact that it's been as long as it has been for them, a little puzzling.
All right, let me get to some few comments before I move on here and get to the NBA trade deadline before we get to closing thoughts here. Carlos Otoro Chavez, the Mad New Yorker, says DeMarcus was huge with those shoulder pads. Klecko was a beast. He could bench like 500 pounds. Yeah, I feel like that's a guy, like, I know his sacks probably get dwarfed a little bit now, but I think that's a guy that I think his stats really don't really kind of measure what he did. Yeah, go ahead,
he made the All-Pro at 3 different positions, too.
Yeah, that was, And also, Carlos wanted to remind us about Darryl Green, who played forever. I mean, Darryl Green played.
Yeah. He's a Hall of Famer. I mean, that guy.
Yeah, and he played.
He won like fastest. He was like the fastest guy when he retired. He was still a quick,
Yeah, I was gonna say because he played until he was like his early 40s. He was playing like it was still a high level player, right? 41ish, 42.
He was definitely long.
He played a long because I remember like when I was getting into football, they were saying, well, he was like the old man and he moved, like you said, really, really well. And John says the crazy thing that Joe Klecko's son, Dan Klecko, played in the Super Bowl championship team with the Patriots. I remember hearing that. And also, Carlos also wanted to say Darryl Green was a good DB. So, yep, obviously great stuff there. Certainly congratulations to all of those players and coaches. And again, Don Coryell also gets in there. And obviously, again, and Ken Riley, want to make sure we acknowledge them for all the different things that they wound up doing. And we'll certainly say, I know Anthony Finkel was making noises about going up there, and he was asking me, well, do you want to go? And I'm like, well, it's a long trip to Canton. I don't know if I'd necessarily do that. I know for Jet fans, this is probably going to be the biggest one for Jet fans yet. And Darryl Green, by the way, the crack staff has reminded me played till he was 42. So I was kind of pretty much spot on there. So there you go. But congratulations to all of that. So we've got our NFL talk in for now, but I wanted to spend for the NBA guys here for a few minutes on it. One more comment here. Carlos wants to come in and says, those wide receivers didn't have to transition into the Colts because Luck was similar to Pete. Yeah, for a little while. Listen, Luck did have some good years there, and unfortunately, the Colt fans retired a little early. But NBA, I mean, what a trade deadline, right, guys? I mean, Rufus, I mean, Joey Bostrom, Justin. I mean, certainly the NBA landscape has changed. I needed a scorecard to keep up with all these news and movers and shakers. And I'll go with Joey Bostrom first because I haven't heard from you in a while. I know Brad's going to have a lot to say on this. But for you, Joey, I know you're a Knicks fan and general fan of the league. So give me your impressions of the trade deadline and maybe some of the winners and losers.
Well, I mean, I think Brooklyn did themselves a huge favor by getting rid of Kyrie and KD. They got some nice pieces that they can build upon, and they don't have to deal with that headache anymore. So I say yes. Thank you, John. So I say good. Bye. But the way it all happened, I mean, first the Russell and the Westbrook trade, to Utah, and Russell going back to LA and all that stuff.
Yes.
The way it all happened was boom, boom, boom. You really did need a scorecard to keep up with it. I think the Nets will. I don't think there's like a bad team now because they lost Kyrie and Durant, but I still they're in the middle of the pack.
Do they stay above the play-in or do they drop down?
Well, that depends also on if the Knicks can pull their head out of the water. I like Josh Hart. It was a quiet move. I think the Nets can grab a 6, or a 5, and the Knicks can get a 6. And that's so that's not terrible. That's not terrible at all. I don't think Phoenix is the team to beat in the West.
Really, you don't think so?
No, because what if it fails? They gave up too much, and
they're gonna win now. But I mean, you got Chris Paul for how long, and Booker's coming back. This is pretty much win now. I mean, they're a team that has to win a championship.
If Phoenix doesn't win, then the whole thing's a fluke. It's a bust, and you're back to square one.
But it's a very winnable Western Conference right now. I mean,
you got Denver, Memphis,
Sacramento. You got the Pelicans have come back on track a little bit. You've got the Warriors. You've got the Timberwolves. You've got the Jazz. I mean, all these teams, right, from like 3 to 12 are bunched up. And I know Brad will talk about it in a few minutes. But, I mean, if you're Phoenix, this is like a real go-for-it move.
Yeah, and I think that Denver, too. I mean, Denver is so good. Phoenix will get to the playoffs. They're not going to, they'll avoid the play-in. They're going to be better. But I want to see Phoenix and Dallas in a 7-game series. I really do. I think
we might get that. Listen, I mean, Dallas is going to be so interesting. Kyrie and Luka. I mean, boy, that's going to be a really, really interesting dynamic. But I think the Phoenix moves are interesting. The Lakers will get to as well. But Justin, I got to get to you because you're a Nets fan. I've got some comments. I mean, what do you make of it? Part of me is happy that Spencer Dinwiddie is coming back. Part of me, though, unfortunately, says we gave up Kyrie. We gave up Durant. Obviously, we have this whole Ben Simmons situation. But, I mean, what's your thoughts on the deadline and also where the Nets stand here?
Well, good riddance because it was a failed experiment. Kyrie Irving was nothing but a headache in his time here. And Kevin Durant is the softest superstar in NBA history. He doesn't like retooling situations. He wants to be in a ready-made spot, and he gets to go to a ready-made winning spot. in Phoenix. So you know what? Good riddance. And you know what? I give Sean Marks credit because he got some pretty good packages back for those two. I'm a big proponent of bringing back Spencer Dinwiddie here, and I like the addition of Dorian Finney-Smith as well.
Yep.
And then you bring back Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson in the Phoenix trade. You did ship off Jay Crowder to Milwaukee for some more second-round picks, and I tell you, I think the Nets did as good as they could because now they have picks for the future. They can, they can either trade and maybe get a star player in the offseason or stock up on these picks and just draft and develop. Because you see what they're doing. They have decently drafted and developed. I mean, you look at the way Nick Claxton's developed as a big man. You look at Cam Thomas.
He's had some big games. Big games.
Cam Thomas has really emerged, and that just goes to show you, the Nets can do a decent job with developing their players, and I do think they could stay in the top 6. Here's my assessment of the team. The Nets are better as a team now that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are gone. The problem is, now that they don't have the superstar, it's going to be concerning on how they create offense. They're going to be a much better defensive team. Dorian Finney-Smith is a tremendous defensive player. Mikal Bridges is going to be guarding your best player every night. And, they will be one of the top defensive teams in the league. Now it's going to be about who generates the offense. And I think that's going to be the biggest concern going forward. And, we'll see, and we'll see how these pieces gel together because now they have a very good depth. They have good depth. They can run a good 8 to 9 man rotation and feel good about what they're putting on the court. So, in essence, you rid yourself the headache, and you're still a pretty solid basketball team. Like Spencer Dinwiddie's a good player who can create his own shot.
I thought he was a good player here for us.
Yep. Right in 25 points for Spencer Dinwiddie in his return to the Nets. Cam Thomas, last night aside, that man's a walking bucket. I mean, that dude, he's another guy.
40 a couple times in a row. I mean, he's had some big games.
Create his own shot, which is huge. They have other guys like Joe Harris is a spot-up shooter, right? Butler is a spot-up shooter. They don't create their own shot. But having these two guys that can still create their own shot, I do think in time can lend itself to be good, but I still think there's a lot of questions.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll certainly see. I want to get to the brute force in a second and move on to closing thoughts. First things first, let's get here from Carlos. Mediocre NBA season, teams dumping contracts. I feel a lockout is coming soon. Let's thank Mr. Dolan for getting Josh Hart. Nets are talented now with no depth. Josh Hart, I think Brunson was the only one happy about this move. We saw that on Twitter. Dolan time coming up here shortly. Phoenix is closer to ER than a championship. Go Plainview. I feel bad for Luka. Now he has to work harder not to be pissed off at his teammates. Nets will be hosting the second round on Zoom until 2029, thanks to the Suns and Mavs. Unfortunately for basketball fans in New York, we'll have to watch Western Conference basketball deeper into the postseason. Maybe so, but the brute force Bradwise, everybody is waiting for what you have to say when it comes to Dolan time and the Knicks. And today's game was yet another example of the Knicks season in a nutshell. And obviously they do make one move here, and I guess the Knicks are kind of where you said they were last week. And I mean, any other thoughts on the NBA trade deadline? And of course, your beloved New York Knicks and Mr. James Dolan, because for those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio, you know what time it is. It's Dolan time.
That's right. It is Dolan time. All right. But let me start. All right. Because I got a lot to talk about because there was a lot that went on. I'm going to start with trades that are not involving my New York Knicks. All right. Let's start right where, Justin finished right there with his Brooklyn Nets. It's the official end of a crazy failure. Arguably, Justin, the biggest epic failure in NBA history. Between
not arguably, it was. No, not arguably, it was.
No, Justin's right. I mean, it really was. I mean, I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be nice.
But be brutally honest. Go ahead.
No, it's true. It's true. So listen, Justin's being the brute force right now. He's being brutally honest. All right, but listen, a complete failure, disaster. I mean, to now completely dismantle this after 3.5 years. With Kyrie obviously being in and out of the lineup, not participating, Durant being injured, coming back, then he's trying to galvanize the team, but nothing's really happening. To win one playoff series, that is embarrassing. That is horrifying. And listen, they did do a good job, to Justin's point, of getting back assets to help them succeed. And obviously, the Nets put themselves in a serious deficit years ago in that Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett trade.
Oh my God!
That they gave up,
and they were left with
and then
they
they
won one playoff series with them. Also, they won exactly one playoff series,
and they were left with absolutely nothing. This time, they have ammunition for the future at least.
Right, and listen, the James Harden trades and other things left them even in a worse spot. But yes, they have recouped. They do have some assets. They do have some picks. So I am happy on that front for the Nets. But clearly, this is a team that's just not a top 6 team anymore. I do think, to Justin's point, they could potentially finish in the top 6, but they are not a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference. And it saddens me to say somewhat, even though I am a New York Knicks fan, that the New York Knicks might actually finish in the top 6. All right, and I'm scared to say it, but the New York Knicks might actually do it. But I'll get to them in a second. Now let's move on from Brooklyn and New York. All right, let's talk about some other places, right? First thing I want to talk about is in L.A., all right, with the Lakers, all right, because the Lakers let Russell Westbrook go, which I thought was a good decision, and I thought they got a really nice package back. I thought they got D'Angelo Russell's a nice player. Jared Vanderbilt is a nice player. Malik Beasley.
How about some size they acquired also from?
Yeah, I mean, they got some players over there, They did ship off Thomas Bryant, which was a good trade for Denver, but according to sources, Thomas Bryant was not happy with his playing time, so they shipped him, right? And they got a player back and some picks. But they also got Rui Hachimura early on. I thought that's been a really nice acquisition. So I like what the Lakers have done. I feel like they're one of the winners at the deadline. Too. Yeah, yep, Mo Bamba as well. I feel like they're winners for sure of the deadline. They did a nice job. They got some shooting around LeBron James. So I think they did a great job.
Toronto also have to give them a nice little mention because they made a nice move with Jakob Poeltl.
Yeah, although, listen, Toronto's an interesting case because we all thought that they were potentially going to give up players, and they did not.
They come out of this as losers, to be honest with you. I think they really – because they could have gotten themselves a nice haul for an OG Anunoby or a Pascal Siakam. I really think that – for a team like Toronto that's in a position of, where they're not going anywhere, I think they messed this deadline up by not trading those guys and recouping assets.
But, you can't sell a fan base, when you're half a game out of a play-in and a couple games out of – unfortunately, that's kind of where they were there. But go ahead, Brad. I see you want to jump in again.
I got a few more. I mean, I will say I also – even though I was a little iffy on it, but I liked what the Clippers did as well. I thought the Clippers, they did get rid of Reggie Jackson, which I thought was a little head-scratching. But with that being said, the buyout market is going to be very wide open, and there's already been rumors that Russell Westbrook will get bought out, and if he does, he might get signed by the Clippers, which would be very interesting.
That would be so interesting.
A reunion with Paul George.
He's played with Paul George, right? I think he would fit in with that group a little bit, because of the way they play. And listen, Ty Lue's a great coach. I think that's a guy who could work into Russell Westbrook and make it happen. So I do think that part of the reason why they let Reggie Jackson go is, one, because they wanted to get size and they got Plumlee. Two, right, they thought that Russell Westbrook would be available, which I think he will be. He's not there yet, but I think he will be because Utah doesn't want him. Now, you want to talk about losers, all right? And no one's going to talk about this team, all right, but I have to talk about this team, all right? Losers, the Houston Rockets. All right, the Houston Rockets.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
what the hell are they doing? What are they doing? I mean, they're just making trades and just buying out players and letting them go. And I don't know what the
that goes back to
Paul
when
back and they just bought him out.
I mean, they didn't even accumulate picks. They just traded to buy out players. What are they doing?
Well, that goes back to 4 or 5 years ago when they had their own trio and they could never advance deep in the postseason. And since that moment, they've pretty much just stopped playing.
My God. I really don't understand what they're doing. They don't make any sense to me. And you think a young team would want to accumulate some more picks instead of just dumping players, which is basically what they did. I mean, they got rid of Eric Gordon. They basically got nothing back. I mean, it was, pretty embarrassing to see what they did. So I think they're one of the biggest losers of all this. I'm going to say this. There's some sneaky moves I want to talk about. There's a couple. One of them, I think, is Muscala going to Boston. I think that move, no one's talking about it, okay? But a guy like Mike Muscala coming from Oklahoma City, he's a shooter. He is tall. He adds an element to that team that's already good, okay? I think that Muscala was a really nice move for the Celtics. And also, obviously, this one's a little bit bigger, but Jay Crowder going to the Bucks. I think that he is a huge piece.
I heard that during Thursday's telecast. Yep, with the Lakers.
That's, again, a little sneaky move. Not really a sneaky, but a move that's going to make a team that's already really good even better. I mean, it's crazy to say that when you have Giannis Antetokounmpo and you have Middleton and you have all the rest of these guys playing at a really high level. I mean, they're going to be even better with a guy like Jay Crowder on their roster. So I like what they did as well. Now, let me roll it over. All right, well, you know what? Now it's time to address this team. The New York Knicks. All right? Listen, ladies and gentlemen. The New York Knicks got Josh Hart. You know why they got Josh Hart? To make Jalen Brunson's heart get bigger and happier. They didn't do it for the Knicks. All right, they have two players that basically do the same thing as Josh Hart. They got Quentin Grimes and they got Deuce McBride, who are basically the same players. They didn't do it for it to get better, right? They did it to satisfy Jalen Brunson, whose father's on the coaching staff. I mean, this is ridiculous, these New York Knicks. I mean, listen, if they would have considered getting Zach LaVine, which was rumored, okay, I would have been a little more serious.
I heard some faint talk about that.
All
in the
right,
last
but
24
Josh
hours.
Hart, I mean, listen, he's a good player. I like him, okay, but you gave up a lot. You gave up picks for this guy like it's not. First of all, let me say another thing. I mean, what if second-round picks become bag of chips all of a sudden? Like that, people are just shipping out second-round picks, 5 over here, 6 over there. What is this? I mean, second-round picks are valuable assets, and the Knicks are just shipping them out to make Jalen Brunson happy with Josh Hart. I mean, I don't understand that at all. Okay, I do like him, but is he going to be a difference maker that's going to get us out of purgatory? No. We're still going to be the same team. I mean, if Zach LaVine was here, I would have actually really considered saying, all right, the New York Knicks can be a playoff team.
Well, now you would have had another chip.
And maybe compete for a series, but is Josh Hart going to do that? Are you kidding me? No. So the New York Knicks, come on. Like, again, John Gonzalez, be happy and Dolan, he got Hart. Oh, stop it. All right, if he did anything, he just broke my heart yet again, which he's done for my whole all right, James Dolan, he did it again. Because that's not really anything that's going to make me happy or any New York Knicks fan go ballistic for Josh Hart, okay? So that's what I have to say on that. And then finally, I'll just add, a few other news and notes, okay? I did like, again, I mentioned Thomas Bryant to Denver. I know Denver got a Bones Highland away to the Clippers, which was a nice move for the Clippers. But the Nuggets, as Joey Bostrom said, I know Phoenix is going to be one of those favorites to be the title winner now. But the Nuggets deserve a little more respect. All right, they are the best team in the Western Conference right now. They do have a ton of depth. That's the one thing that in Phoenix we got to really watch. They got a great starting lineup, but where's the depth? I mean, what do they have behind the starting lineup? I mean,
a longer series with guys that are veteran players with history of injuries like Durant and
right. So listen, I think Phoenix is going to be one of the favorites to win the whole thing this year. I just caution people to remember that the Denver Nuggets are pretty serious. The Aaron Gordon is playing amazing basketball. Okay, Nikola Jokic, we don't even have to say anything.
Right, I was about to say.
This dude is going to win another MVP.
This guy gets triple doubles by halftime.
Oh, he does it in his sleep. I mean, he gets triple doubles in his sleep. This guy, he's unbelievable. Jamal Murray's came back and made a big impact. Michael Porter is no scrub, right? You got Caldwell Pope shooting like 40-something% from three. Absolutely unbelievable. So they got pieces all over. Bruce Brown, the former net, having a great role on that team. So Denver, to me, still is that team that I'm watching in the West. I know Phoenix is there now. I know the Clippers are still there. Okay, I know that the Mavericks with Kyrie Irving, as you mentioned.
That's going to be a really interesting situation.
Will be interesting. Okay. And listen, you still have your other teams like Golden State kind of in the wing, somewhere in the Lakers.
Pelicans have won a couple in a row, got off to the strong start, had the long losing streak there.
Yeah.
In the mix, you've got Memphis, by the way.
It's like you said earlier, Tom, the Western Conference is much improved. It's going to be very good. Okay. The East is still very good. I know the Nets have kind of fallen apart, but the East is still good. With those top-heavy teams, obviously, Boston, Philly, Milwaukee. I mean, those teams are still there.
Miami, Cleveland, the second tier.
Right. So I still think that that's going to be a competitive conference. But, again, let me just repeat and let me make sure John Gonzalez hears this clear before he comments some nonsense. Okay? The New York Knicks did not get better at the trading deadline. Don't give me no heart is the answer. Don't give me no heart is the – please. All right, the New York Knicks did not get better. I think they made a foolish move because they gave up too much for this guy, and they just did it to satisfy Jalen Brunson, one player. They did it to satisfy one player. Absolutely unbelievable. You know what, Tom? I shouldn't be surprised because if there's any team that'll do this, it's the New York Knicks.
Listen, before I move on to closing thoughts and read off a few comments, which I'm just going to go shotgun on. Listen, the WNBA season's not that far away. So listen, I know you're riled up now.
I'll say this real quick, Tom Bryce, real quick. I was watching Breanna Stewart and Courtney Vandersloot's press conference, and I was hyped. These girls are ready to win. They want to win.
I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward. Listen, we're going to meet up again going to a WNBA game. I'm looking forward to.
Tickets are not cheap, though. We're going to have to pay some money for them.
That's okay. Well, I can afford it. Listen, God has blessed me. That's okay. I can afford to go to a game. I'm looking forward to that. So that'll be a fun experience. Anthony Finkel don't live too far from Barclays. He'll join us. So let me get to some more comments before we get to closing thoughts. Let's see here. Feels like early 2000s again. Go back to the past post. I told you that Tibbs needs to go and send the GM Leon Rose as well. The Three Stooges. Also, so many airports here. We can't fly these guys somewhere. Come on, man. John Gonzalez says, wake up, Joey. Draft picks, really now we have to wait to be like the Pelicans. Westbrook needs to get on Ice Cube's 3-on-3 tournament. He's cooked, and no one wants to coach him. I have a feeling Jamal Crawford's going to be on that this summer, the way he looked on some of these NBA TV and TNT postgame shows. But I think Westbrook will still be in the league. I don't think he's quite 3-on-3 material yet. Sacramento's in the best situation and did not have to make moves. Kings, listen, Kings look like they could finally – and Kings have the longest playoff drought in all of sports, right? And they very well might break.
They're looking good right now. They're looking good.
That's a fan base that's really struggled. They had issues with the ownership. They've had issues
give credit to Mike Brown, the guy who was with Golden State for a few years, for coming in there and doing a great job.
You know what? I'd like to see them get in there because, again, the last time they were in the playoffs was, I think, 2006. It's been a long – 4. There you go. Thank you very much. Rockets are just selling jerseys. Eric Gordon – he's saying they are. Houston not trying to play high salaries for 30-plus-year-olds. Knicks are just going in circles. Yeah, fair point, because the hard move, it's not a game changer. I mean, I agree with you, Brad, that it's not a game changer. It's another role player-ish that the Knicks don't really need.
They have two of the same guy already. Now they have 3.
What happened to the Zach LaVine talks? The last
I don't know.
Into Thursday morning, all you were hearing, the Knicks were in on Zach LaVine.
I don't know. Knicks roster won't matter until management gets situated. Brute Force, I'm getting you a Kings jersey. Time to jump to the West Side. Boy, Carlos is ready to jump into the Kings.
You know what, Carlos? You know what? You might be persuading me. I should just become a Kings fan at this point.
Hey, listen, you know what? A lot of people might because the Kings are finally in a position. They're third in the Western Conference. They haven't been this far in the standings in about 20 years. So that could always breed new fans and maybe new front runners. But This was Sportswire Radio tonight. We pretty much ran the gauntlet. We started the show with WWE. We started it with some NHL. We had Rob Maraska in a contest, a few minutes on baseball, and then we spoke NFL, Super Bowl, Hall of Fame. We talked Pro Bowl, plus the NBA trade deadline, our closing thoughts. I'm sure some of us will have some thoughts on some local stuff as well. So this was what we spoke about. And Carlos, before I get to that, blue collar team, go Kings. I'm with you, Carlos. But let me get to some closing thoughts here. Joey Bostrom, you're up first. Joey, I know you're obviously a busy guy, got a lot going on. Obviously, we don't always get a chance to hear from you. Hopefully, we hear from you more in the future. So, want to give you some closing thoughts, any social media, anything else you want to plug. And also stay with us because I'll have an announcement that I'll share with us regarding next season's Sportswire Radio picks. So, floor is yours and fire away, my friend.
Yes. Thank you guys again. Tom, thank you. And thank you guys for having me. You guys are awesome. I mean, you know, the NBA I really wanted to get into, so I really enjoyed that as with the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we'll get into more of it now once the NFL season's over after this weekend. We won't have much to talk about with that, sure.
Shout out to Randy and Rob Maraska.
Yes.
Don Gonzalez and the Sports Authorities. I post a lot of good stuff from there.
Yes, I see that.
As does everybody else. It's fantastic, really. It's another great night. Tough loss for our Knicks tonight, but we'll get it back tomorrow night against the Jazz, hopefully. You can follow me on Facebook, Joseph Bostrom, on Twitter at Joseph Bostrom, on Instagram, Bostrom Joseph, and want to check out my YouTube channel? It's Joseph Bostrom. I trying to get some more music up there, and I was thinking about doing like a once a week sports thing. I forgot about it. Things have been like moving along pretty quickly. I want to try to do something like a small podcast on my YouTube channel, but we'll see what happens. But thank you guys again so much, and hopefully, you know, for the next coming months, I can keep coming on. But thank you guys.
Absolutely. Yep. And we gave you another sub to your YouTube page, Joseph Bostrom 5344. That is on YouTube. So we see some of your content there. So obviously we gave you a follow there. Also Joseph Bostrom on Twitter, Bostrom Joseph on Instagram. So we'll make sure to tag you when I'm off the air because I forgot to tag because I didn't remember what your Twitter was. So we'll do that as well for the Twitter version. So good stuff, Joey, and hang around for our closing thoughts. And Justin, I turn it over to you. Want to give you the floor. Any closing thoughts? Anything else you want to plug, share, say? And floor is yours. Fire away.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this to the Super Bowl on Sunday. Of course, should also be a pretty good sports weekend with the locals. Especially in the NHL. I know you covered it. I'm sure with Randy earlier.
Yes,
the Vladimir Tarasenko trade, which is huge for the Rangers. Scored tonight for them. The Islanders made that trade for Bo Horvat and signed him. We'll see what the Devils end up doing, but they're playing good hockey right now as well. Maybe we get all three local teams here into the postseason. Islanders are in a dogfight right now. Last night was a tough loss, though.
That was an embarrassing third period. I mean, Randy and I covered it. I know Chris is shaking his head, but that was as embarrassing of a third period a team could play.
It was a tough ending.
Yeah,
it was a tough ending.
And Anthony Beauvillier, the irony, actually scored technically the game-winning goal.
The game-winning goal, yeah. That's unbelievable the way it works out like that. But looking forward to that post NFL season, and as we start getting into pitchers and catchers. The World Baseball Classic rosters were officially put out there, and my God, the Dominican roster is just an absolute wagon. I mean, you got it.
Yeah, we'll get into a little bit of that next week. Well, actually, I think Rob kind of.
I mean, them in the U.S. have to be the two favorites for the World Baseball Classic, and also too. How about you, Darvish, getting a 6-year contract worth $108 million? At 36 years old. I thought that was curious, the 6 years. And also I thought the $108 million was a little bit light, to be honest with you. I thought at least maybe $150 for him, but hey, Padres get a bargain for the next 6 years, and they're going to be a force that we'll be talking about soon as pitchers and catchers report in just days, and we start getting ready for the World Baseball Classic as well. So looking forward to it all. So
Absolutely,
follow me on Twitter at JGNLE12. And the Baseball Banter Twitter page is at BBallBanterSM.
Absolutely. I think I'm ready for baseball. I think certainly it's been a long time, and I've heard enough people talk about it that it'll be good to see some baseball, especially here with the really, really mild winter in New York. I said before I get to Chris with Rob Moroska, it feels like baseball is literally right around the corner, and we're less than 7 weeks already from the start of the season. So that means we're right there. Chris, obviously, good to hear from you as always. Want to hear your closing thoughts, anything you want to plug or say. Liftoff Jets, looking forward to hearing coming up this weekend. Anything else you want to say? And this was a happy birthday right to your daughter. I think your daughter's birthday
Tomorrow.
party. So tomorrow, happy birthday to her.
Now.
Well, today, many blessings. Hope she enjoys, and always enjoy having you. And anything else you want to say? And floor is yours.
Thank you, guys. Great show as always. Joey, great to see you again, man. Hopefully you join us again. Again. But and actually I just subscribed to your YouTube real quick while we were talking. So
yep.
I'm gonna check that out as well. But I'm looking forward to obviously Sunday. Long NFL season is short, but it gets long. Like
I know it just goes
and
Jet
goes.
Fans,
it's long, because the playoff games, you're like, come on, why can't we be in these games? So hopefully we'll get some good news soon with Aaron Rodgers or somebody. We need a quarterback, man. I'm sick and tired of just going into a season with question marks at the quarterback position. We got some good pieces now we can build around. This is it. Let's get a quarterback in here somehow. Hopefully it out this offseason. But we'll be doing that on Liftoff Jets, obviously, every week. We'll be getting into a review and also start talking about the draft. We'll be getting into that soon. And talking rivals, like you said, man, pitchers and catches are reporting this week. So we're excited about that, man. Can't wait for baseball season to start. It's going to be a great season, especially New York, Yankees, Mets. Should be playoff teams for sure. So definitely looking forward to that. We're actually going to start a preview this week. We're going to do the American League East. We got our good friend Matt Patterson, who's a big Orioles fan.
Oh, that's
a
an
little bit older
interesting team.
than myself, and very knowledgeable. So I'm looking forward to talking to him about the American League East, especially the Orioles.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Orioles are going to be an interesting team.
Yeah,
I like
definitely.
that one. That's a good one.
Definitely look me up at CP7NY on Twitter and Liftoff Jets on Twitter, Talking Rivals on Twitter, talkingrivals.com. And we'll see you guys soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to all that. Looking forward to hearing the Liftoff Jets show. I'm live Sunday before the Super Bowl, so I'll use it a couple times as my bridge. So I look forward to that. So all great stuff there from you gentlemen. And while we didn't save the best for last, as always, we definitely saved the biggest for last. That is the brute force Brad Weiss, who I know has got some closing thoughts on an old friend who he played against out there in Yeshiva. We'll hear, I'm sure, those comments there about Mr. Terrell. We'll talk about our Golden Eagles, kind of a ending of a disappointing week, I think, once again. And certainly we have some big games coming up. Guys are kind of in a tough spot with the postseason, but certainly some other stuff the brute force has got going on. Obviously, a recap for our Plainview JFK JV team, obviously. So the brute force, Brad Weiss, I turn it over to you. You know the drill at this point, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, for another great week of Friday Night Live here on the Sports Report. Thank you, Chris, Justin, Joey Bostrom, of course, for coming on and have another great week. They're certainly coming fast. So, as you guys said, and the faster they come, the warmer the weather, I guess, because it was a beautiful day here in New York. So
it's supposed to be 60s, I heard, next week.
So hopefully, somebody told me today, hopefully the groundhog is wrong. All right, and the warm weather is coming.
The Staten Island one said early spring. Listen, no. Staten Island one said early spring.
Staten Island groundhog is right. All right, so that's the one that matters.
Everybody that.
All right, so ultimately, I'm just happy to see the weather improving, and that means, as you guys said, baseball season, which I'll touch on in a second. You can follow me on social media, Bradley Weiss on Facebook, at BradWeiss20 on Twitter, at BWeiss20, and searching at Coach Brad Weiss on Instagram, and also now on TikTok at BWeiss20. So certainly I will start, by ending, because tomorrow will mark the end of my JV season. The last game for our boys is tomorrow against Oceanside High School in Oceanside. So we are marking our last game. the boys, it's been a little bit of an inconsistent season. We are 9-9. Hopefully, we'll get to 10-9 tomorrow to finish it up. But we've had our tough games. We actually just played Baldwin this past week. We were down 23 in the first half. Came back to cut it to 1 in the second half, which I was really proud of the boys coming back after the tough start, but ultimately did lose. So, it's been a learning experience. But as I always say at the end of the seasons, I appreciate the kids for their hard work, for working for me, for trusting me as a coach. So I thank them, and I thank everybody who supports us for another great season. The good news is the varsity team has made the playoffs once again, and we will start that starting next week. So we are very excited. We don't know who we're playing yet. That'll be determined tomorrow based on how the standings work and who wins and who loses. But we are excited to do that. So very exciting stuff there. Now, to continue, I do want to talk about what Tom was alluding to. All right, first off, I had 2 amazing experiences last weekend. The first one was I got to go to Hofstra against Stony Brook, and I didn't just get to go watch the game. I was actually in a suite, which was one of the first times I ever experienced a suite experience. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
It was a great game. Hofstra won, and for those who don't follow Hofstra is actually doing very well this year in college basketball. And their team, John Gonzalez is talking all this nonsense, all right, about me not knowing how to pick these brackets. All right, watch out for Hofstra, okay, because they got a good chance to win their division, and they might make the tournament. So I'm very excited to see that. But it was a very entertaining game, and that was fun, as was the Long Island Nets game I went to last weekend against the Motor City Cruise. And for those who don't know, the Motor City Cruise feature actually 2 players that I played against in high school and in college. High school, Jared Roden. So Jared Roden has been in and out of the NBA. Jared Roden played for Baldwin, who I played against in high school. And then, of course, the one we all know, all right, and that is Ryan Terrell.
Oh,
all right,
that guy I know. That guy I really know. Yep.
So Terrell, he played great. I mean, there were so many members of the Jewish community who were at that game supporting him. It was awesome to see just the people going nuts when he came in the game, cheering him on, yelling his name. He went out there and he had a great performance. I mean, he hit a few threes. He finished and one. He had a nice move right in front of me. I was actually right behind one of the baskets, and it was pretty cool to just see him perform at this level when I got to play against him at Yeshiva. So props to Ryan Terrell. I'm really excited for him because he's playing well. He has a role on a G League team, and the more that continues, the more it accelerates his chance to be the first Orthodox Jewish player to play in the NBA, and I think he's going to do it. It's just
we're talking about that. I think he has a legitimate shot. I think he reminds me so much different player, but John Petroselli, where you could feel it. This guy's like he's got a shot. He's got a shot.
Really, and he's playing at a high level, Tom. I mean, he's defending, and he's making shots, tough shots, and the moves he's making to the rim too. These are against guys who have played in the G League for years.
Absolutely.
He's a young, if you want to call it, a young pup, basically, a young guy.
Hey, listen, you can't compare playing D3. No disrespect, we love D3 basketball, but he's playing against pros, and he was a D3 player.
Listen, and he's playing alongside guys like David Nawaba, who used to play in the NBA, right? Guy who's been, around the block, right? And he was playing against a good Long Island Nets team too. That's been playing really well.
They won several games in a row. Yep.
Yeah, they got some guys playing well. David Duke, some guys you guys have heard. David Duke, Chris Chiozza.
Chris Chiozza, I know.
Yeah, amongst others. So they got a good team. The Nets did win, but again, Terrell was fantastic, as was Jared Roden. So props to those guys who, again, I got to play against. So it feels cool to kind of see guys who I got to go against prosper at the next level. Now, to pivot from Ryan Terrell's current team to Ryan Terrell's former team, the Yeshiva Maccabees, unfortunately got the best of our Golden Eagles. Danzy Center, which, listen, one thing I've been a little concerned about, Tom, I'm going to say this, is that our Golden Eagles have had a tough time at home this year.
I know.
They've kind of been a little bit inconsistent. Obviously, they're coming off. The game before, they had a great win against Farmingdale State at home.
But to have a 5-game homestand and to go 1-4, and I know there was some heartbreakers and some really, really devastating games, but to go 1-4 on a homestand,
Yeah, it's not, they haven't had a great year. Even at the beginning of the year, right, they had the losses to Pratt, at home and amongst a couple others.
The Pratt game was one we would like to have back, I think, if you spoke to
Yeah, I
the
mean, there's
guys.
a bunch of them. So listen, this is a team right now that obviously is competing for a playoff opportunity and a playoff seeding. So we'll see if they ultimately do get a chance to get a home game in the playoffs. But they got to perform a little bit better at home. They've had a tough season. So listen, it's been a little bumpy ride for our Golden Eagles, but hopefully the best thing, like I said, Tom, for them is first of all, obviously making the playoffs, which they still have a good chance of. Okay. And second, momentum. Obviously, you got to build some momentum going into it. So these next couple of weeks, Tom, are going to be very important for our Golden Eagles, right, to get some momentum going in because they've kind of been up, down, right?
It wasn't this. Listen, I'll get to my thoughts on it when you close in a few minutes, but it's not been the same year as last year. I mean, there's a couple of factors I'm going to address in a second, but I mean, it's definitely they've had a very, very Jekyll and Hyde season.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, you just hope that, because it's always, we talk about this even in professional sports, right? Where, the teams that just get hot could go on that run and be that surprise team that, goes through and gets to the championship game. So hopefully that is the case for our Golden Eagles. So that's where I wanted to address there. And then, the final thing I'll just say is, baseball season is coming. By the way, since you guys are talking about it, the first game, the Mets are playing the Miami Marlins to start the season in Miami. I'm actually going to be in Miami for the first game, wow. And I'm going to be with the 7-Line Army. So I'm looking forward.
So who did you know to pull that one off?
So listen, me and my friend Matt Chase, I'll give him a shout out, have already had experience with the 7-Line Army. So we saw an opportunity, right, to take a nice little trip out to Florida, which we all need right now, especially me. I need it. All right, I've done a lot of coaching.
Finkel's going to be down there starting February the 24th.
I might see him down there, but I'll be in Miami for the Mets opening day game down in Florida. I still do plan to get on the Sports Report on Friday live from Miami, so that'll be fun as well.
If you get 15 minutes, spend 15 minutes from us at the ballpark. Maybe you get this, I'm sure that'll be fun.
I'll still be on Friday night. I plan to. So, but seriously though, pitchers and catchers reporting. It is a fun time. I'm looking forward to seeing that and what the Mets can do this season. Mm-hmm. And it all starts at spring training. All the good habits, all the little things, all the little things that Buck Showalter talks about, like knowing the rules and all the things that they talk about all season, right? Those are things that start now in spring training. So I'm looking forward to talking about that and more NBA stuff going forward, Tom. So thank you, guys. Looking forward to the Super Bowl. Once again, John Gonzalez, should be ashamed of yourself. You should be listening to me more than you should. All right, but you'll learn, like you said to me, you'll learn in March Madness because you ain't beating me there. I'll tell you that.
That's going to be good. I'm looking forward to the March Madness bracket and all great stuff. I want everybody to follow the Brute Force. That's Coach Brad Weiss on Instagram, bweiss20 on Instagram, Brad Weiss20 on Twitter, Bradley Weiss on Facebook, Snapchat, I believe it's also Brad Weiss as well. Please make sure to follow the Brute Force on his journey, and congratulations to the JV team. Let's end it on a strong note. It's always better to be 10-9 rather than 9-10, and obviously the varsity team will definitely recap as well, and all the great things. And congratulations again to Ryan and certainly the Yeshivas. Watching the Yeshiva game on Wednesday at an earlier time than Brute Force, and they travel the Yeshiva fan base. And the Yeshiva fans, I mean, you got to give them credit. They have one of the most devoted and loyal fan bases around. But unfortunately, our boys, as much as we love them, I mean, that's another game. We get off to a 13-2 start. We're up 27-17. Defensively playing as well as you could have played against them. And then the second half, it was almost as if we came out the first 4 or 5 minutes and, we get down by 9 and then we come back and the game kind of changed. We were up 1 and then there was an inbounds where I think that it went off our player. I forget who it was, and the shot clock was at 2 seconds. We're up 1 middle of the second half and they hit a 3. And then it was like right afterwards, Yeshiva just kept hitting shot after shot. We know they're a great 3-point shooting team to begin with, even though they lost guys. And that's kind of been, I think, the Achilles heel of this team, unfortunately. We have not been able to defend the 3, and Yeshiva kind of carved us up there in the second half. And, got back into it. We were down double digits and late in the second half, got to within 5. But, Yeshiva, they're champions for a reason, the Brew Force. They've been in this spot. Unfortunately, our boys, couldn't make the sweep. It would have been a big win for us because we would have been right there for us in the standings. But listen, they've got 3 games left, and it starts really tonight here, 5 o'clock at Old Westbury. You have to go into Old Westbury and win. And I hate to say it, the Brew Force, the season's probably coming down to Tuesday. Tuesday at home against Mount St. Vincent. We're tied 7-6, and that's the tiebreaker game. So it's pretty much like we're going to have to win 2 of the next 3. 2 of the 3 gets us in the postseason, and one of those games has to be Mount St. Vincent. So listen, like you said, got to get into the postseason, got to have momentum. I will say this. You talked about Jekyll and Hyde. I'm going to say it, just my opinion. I do think if you look at where this team has struggled, the reason that this team has struggled since Liam Sheehy went down, that's the moment. I'm just saying he was the guy that really lengthened this team. He gave them something that this team hasn't had since really the moment you were healthy. And I think that him going down, he was a top 30, top 40 player in the nation defensively. I'm sorry, but, you lose him. I know Coach Ewell is not going to want to hear that. Mantesta is not going to want to hear that. But when you lose a guy to that caliber, and you're in these tough spots, Merchant Marine, Maritime, Manhattanville, Yeshiva, lost him. I mean, so I still think we're better than these teams. I still think we're going to get into the postseason. I think these guys are veterans. I think Matt Hurt's going to step up. I think Timmy Hurt's going to play better. I think Ryan McNeely, Tom Bell, and I think that we still have Malloy, Allen, and Tabata, so I think we'll be okay. But listen, they know what they have to do. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. They know they have to win 2 of 3. 2 of 3 get you in the postseason, but I still think they're going to be a tough team, but you want to get into the postseason. So we'll see what happens. Everybody follow the team, obviously, SJLI_MBB on Instagram and Twitter, and also follow all of these great people. And before I let you go, I'm going to make an announcement here, which I'm going to touch upon in the middle of the week so you guys will know on Friday. So during the week, I will make an announcement for next season's NFL picks on Sportswire Radio because I think you guys are all going to be motivated to get your picks in early, get them in on time, join, get your friends to join, get your family to join because I'm going to have an announcement for next season's NFL picks on something you might win, something that might, let's say, sweeten the pot. Let's say motivate you to make sure every week you get your picks in there. Make sure you get everybody to join, more people to listen to Sportswire Radio because I promise you what I'm going to have for everybody here and everyone else, John Gonzalez, Anthony Fink, whoever else may play, not only are you going to want to play, you're going to want to get your friends to play because it's going to, like I said, it's going to be big. All I'm going to say is going to be big. We'll make that announcement here probably sometime in the middle of the week, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, so stay tuned for that. I'll make sure to tag everybody, so I promise you that'll be worth it. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, on Friday's show. But my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. If you're on sportnarium.com/play, you're going to go to a sit-down Marks Marathon, and plus we'll have all of your favorite shows later throughout the weekend. Also, we were joined here tonight by Joseph Bostrom. Of course, Joey Bostrom's got a YouTube page, Joseph Bostrom 5344, Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show, Chris Pizzea, Liftoff Jets Talking Rivals. You'll hear both those shows this weekend on sportnarium.com/player. And the man who's 26th all time in the SJLI Golden Eagles men's basketball history, also a coach with the varsity Plainview JFK Hawks team, also a coach for the JV team, the head coach, also with the Level Up Basketball Organization, Long Island Nets, LI Brew Crew. That is the Brew Force, Brad Weiss. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Be safe out there wherever you're going. Certainly make sure that you don't do anything silly. And we'll be back Friday. And also stay tuned this week for the big announcement on what's going to be for next season's NFL picks. Thank you. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are here on the number one global radio station that is Sports